prosecution outlined how accounting practices did not.
What kind of likeness is that? If they were great artists, they'll be in a museum. I'm fucking fodder for cartoonists now.
Welcome to Gutter Boys, episode 39. I am your host, JB, with my co-host, Cam. And for today's episode, we are joined by Evan Salazar, creator of the Rodeo anthology, which is a self-published ongoing anthology series that he's working on. Issue 2 is available now. Before we get into that, though, let's get into some comic news.
Hell yeah. Alrighty, so comic news. Batman is Black. DC announced a new story as part of their Future State as the new DC event, and the screenwriter of 12 Years a Slave, John Ridley, is writing the Batman book, and Batman under the cowl is going to be Tim Fox, which is Lucius Fox's estranged son, who originally appeared in 1979. I don't really have anything to say about that.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's interesting that this is the book that they put the, big Hollywood screenwriter on.
Like if any book needs like the shine, like you should put somebody with that kind of clout on, like, I don't know, like fucking Animal Man or some character that, could use a boost. But I mean,
talk about burying the lead, DC.
Yeah. Speaking of Batman, I picked up last week. DC does that occasional anthology. I feel like there's been different iterations of it. Batman Black and White. It's pretty much like they always give like artists and writers short stories they can do about Batman, and it's just always in black and white. But the new issue came out, and honestly, from an art standpoint, it's pretty sick. It has Tradd Moore in it, who I think is making some of like the most interesting looking mainstream comics. Like, if you haven't seen Tradd Moore's stuff, I feel like he's one of those comic artists that's like influenced by Jack Kirby, but is like made it his own thing. So it's not like Tom Scioli. Not that that's a diss, but I mean, like, you look at Scioli's stuff.
Yeah, it's not a literal copying of the style, right? Yeah.
Yeah, like Tradd Moore's doing shit that, like, it just reminds me of Kirby, but it doesn't look like Kirby. You can tell that, he learned from him. J.H. Williams had a strip in there too, but the reason why I bring this up, because of Tradd's story, Tradd Moore has an 8-page story that was written by James Tynion IV, which, if you're claiming you're the fourth of something, you've already probably got issues. No, besides that, though, here's what the deal is. The story was written by this James guy, and Tradd's art is really what, brought me to the dance. The story is just about, like, this criminal who's watching Batman kick the shit out of all of his friends, and he's, like, amazed by how graceful and beautiful of a fighter Batman is.
So it's like, fuck Batman.
Yeah, he's just, like, simping for Batman before he gets annihilated by Batman.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's the story. But the art is fucking sick. But at the end of each of these stories in this book, there's like a bio for, the team that did it. So I'll just read Tradd's real quick first. It came second on the page because, writers are always first. And Tradd's is just your bullshit typical PR. The world of comics has always improved with the release of a new Tradd Moore project, making a huge splash with Image's The Strange Town of Luther Strode in 2011. Moore quickly established himself as one of the most distinctive and exciting artists of the 2010s, frequently oscillating between boundary-pushing original stories and immensely imaginative takes on longtime fan favorite characters, including Marvel's Silver Surfer and Ghost Rider. So there's a little bit typical of, typical stuff, a couple flowery words in there, nothing too crazy. Kind of hearkening back to our last episode where we were talking about how fucking crazy writers are.
Well, you big two writers specifically.
Yeah. Your big two writers. I'm going to read you James Tynion's bio that he definitely 100% wrote himself. And none of this is made up, by the way. Much like Batman himself, James Tynion IV is prepared for anything. Starting his career in comics as an intern for DC Vertigo and studying writing under fellow Batman scribe Scott Snyder, Tynion hit the ground running when the opportunity to begin writing Batman for DC presented itself. Starting by co-writing backups in the main Batman series, Tynion went on to write spin-off titles, oversee 2 weekly Batman series, have a celebrated run on Detective Comics, and most recently take the comics world by storm with a stellar run on the main Batman title with artistic powerhouses Jorge Jimenez and Gilliam March. At first glance, you'd think Tynion had only been working the past decade for this, but in truth, he's been working his whole life for it, honing his craft as a writer and getting ready to say everything he ever wanted to say about The Dark Knight.
You must be wondering how we came to this moment, Mr. Wayne.
Let me see if I recollect. Some stuff happened. You sucked my dick.
My father.
Like a lot.
My father never accepted Bane.
How was that, by the way?
Are you done?
I hadn't showered that day, and I fight crime in a rubber suit. Really seals in the flavor.
Oh, dude, Jesus.
Tynion is one of the biggest writers in the industry today, seen as one of DC's finest storytellers, and currently writing many beloved creator-owned projects. Much like Batman himself, James Tynion IV doesn't sleep much either. That's truly demented and deranged behavior. He wrote that thing in third person, which, I mean, I guess it makes sense, but the fact that, like, how many times did this motherfucker say Batman? Like, and compare himself to Batman, a fictional character, in his little About Me?
Yeah. I also like the Scott Snyder name drop.
Yeah, it's like, dude, this just, to me, reinforces that these, like, writers for these companies have to feel important. Because Tradmore, like, just imagine getting Tradmore's art for your script. And you just have to seriously just like be like, well, I guess I'm just gonna.
Well, I wrote it.
Yeah, I guess I should just write more shit about myself. Yeah, that's just fucking delusional behavior. Like that.
Yeah, you hate to see it.
Yeah, it's fucking terrible.
Hate to see it.
Another story. J.H. Williams to me is like a god when it comes to like mainstream comics. Like anytime he works on any book, I check it out at least. But he did a story in this though where it's like, if you've seen J.H. Williams pages, you know how they are. There's no like defined like structure usually. It's like a collage that's, beautifully woven together. A lot of watercolor and traditional analog tools as well. But the story is like, there's not many words. So it's told through like, it looks like Batman's mom's pearl necklace is being broken. So the story is told in the pearl necklace, like the beads that are kind of dancing across the page, if that makes sense. But eventually the beads turn into COVID.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And Batman's talking about how it's the only enemy that he can't fight, but he's going to do everything he can to help. And it shows him jumping off of a building, going to fight crime while wearing a face mask.
Damn, so true. Batman said, wear your damn masks.
Do you think like...
And then Commissioner Gordon introduces Joe Biden. And they talk about how they're finally going to bring back the decency to Gotham City.
Do you think Bruce Wayne would be for or against masks?
I think he'd be indifferent because he'd have a cure already.
That
and it would be just for him.
Could you imagine like if he wore the mask when he was Batman, but he refused to when he was Bruce Wayne? Alfred's fucking dying of COVID. And he's like, "Sir, will you please wear a mask?" And Bruce is like, "I just wear a mask all the time, Alfred." And he can't bring himself to put a fucking like PPE on. And I don't know. I just feel like Bruce would
if you're Batman, you don't need to actually wear a literal mask that you can buy at Walgreens. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, I feel like Bruce would be like the type to fuck around and get COVID from his fundraiser or some shit with all these rich people. But, you're right, though. He probably has like a cure just in a vial.
Yeah. Or some kind of, I don't know. I mean, if you're just some fucking lazy ass writer, you can come up with something stupid enough and it'll be in a book. So.
Yeah. So Batman Black and White, though, it gets my stamp of approval, though, from an art standpoint. And you can read that truly psychotic about the author that James Tynion wrote.
Yeah, I've never heard of him. And so I don't.
Yeah, he created the Joker's girlfriend. So he's sick.
Oh, that's cool.
Punchline.
Guy. What a cool guy. What a cool company.
Yeah. I guess, props to you, James. You said you were working your whole life to tell this Batman story, and I'm sure that you're going to say some things that have never been said about Batman, the most overdone character.
Yeah, right. Batman's actually the strongest man in the world. Yeah. Not many people know this. He's like if the CIA and the Marine Corps were like combined in a lab, but like
That's Captain America.
but like cooler.
Yeah. He only comes out at night, bro. Like me.
Yeah. He's an operator. That's why.
That's all the news I had written down outside of our plugs. So what'd you
You're
find?
fired, Cam. Okay,
Yeah.
so now I'll be taking over the show now.
Yeah. Go for it. I got a PlayStation now, so I don't need this show.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, how's your game going? Did you hack everyone? I don't even...
I fucked around and Tony Hawk Pro Skater like 1 and 2, like the reissue for PS4 was on sale. So I played Cyberpunk for like 2 days and then I've been playing Tony Hawk. Cyberpunk is like, I mean, it's cool. It looks cool, but it's pretty much just like Fallout, but you're a crazier hacker and you can pick your dick size. So if you played Fallout, I mean, I'm not like a hardcore gamer really, but it just seems like Fallout to me. Like if you told me that was a Fallout game, I would have believed you. That's my review.
Well, you heard it here first. 4 out of 5 stars.
Like, it's so weird, though. So many people, like, talk about with Cyberpunk, like, Keanu Reeves and stuff. I've been playing that game for, like, I've probably put a good, like, 11 or 12 hours into it, and I still haven't met Keanu Reeves. So I don't know where the fuck he's at.
That's funny.
Yeah, I did see that, what's his name? The dude who made Death Stranding is in it. Kojima? Apparently, he's just walking around in the streets in Cyberpunk.
You get to, like, bully him? Is that
I don't know.
the feature? Okay.
I haven't found him, yeah. He probably just...
Speaking of DC Comics, we want to go ahead and send out a sincere apology to one Shane Davis. We completely overlooked this very important story that took place originally back in November of last year and then kind of continued to develop through the month of May of this year. Really, really sorry about that. To maybe do a brief review of the important news that we did miss out on reporting.
Yeah, if you're listening to this show, you're like us and you didn't know who Shane Davis was.
Right. Yeah. So, but now we do know who he is, and so his story must be told.
Yeah, so just a little bit of background on Shane. He is currently employed by DC. He is working on the Metal Men book with Dan DiDio, and he had previously worked on Superman Earth 1, and he is also affiliated with Comicsgate.
Yeah, so he's a cool guy. And so there was a bit of some, it airs on like wacky sitcom storyline. Shane Davis was selling a Jeep that belonged to his late mother. His mom had passed, unfortunately. Before that sale took place, his dad did not remove all of the items that belonged to Shane in the vehicle. And that also included 2 portfolios of original artwork. So Davis tries to track down the portfolios and decides to meet this guy in a parking lot. Before they meet, I guess Shane found out that this guy was shopping around his portfolios trying to sell it. I think he was also trying to sell it to Davis's own art dealer, Splash Page Art, which is very funny.
And I think Shane made an offer to try to get the pages back.
Yeah, so when this guy was shopping it around to Splash Page Art, whose client is Shane Davis, they of course alert Shane Davis about this. And so Davis arranges to meet with this guy in a parking lot. And, well, Cam, you can tell what happened from there.
Yeah, so I guess Shane was trying to get his pages back. And what ended up happening was a guy who looks to be wearing a FedEx uniform ended up straight up choking out Shane Davis in the parking lot. There are pictures because Shane has, he started a GoFundMe to help with legal fees, but the GoFundMe has since been removed. But in the GoFundMe, the photos were published of Shane like laying down with this guy on his back, just choking his ass out in some kind of sleeper. And
yeah, he's knocked out. His eyes are closed. He's catching some Z's. This guy is just smiling away with his arm wrapped around Shane's neck. It is a beautiful image.
Yeah, so this fucking Comicsgate douchebag tried to go get his art back, and this guy, I guess, didn't like his attitude, or something happened to where he choked his ass out and assaulted him. As far as what happened with the case, I didn't see any updates on that. However, there was a little twist.
Yeah, before all this took place, he had filed a stolen property report. So when the police arrived after he got knocked out, they told him that he had filed the report in the wrong county to where that meeting took place. And so the police actually returned the portfolio to the guy and not to Shane.
So the guy choked out Shane and got to keep his art.
Yeah, all in the same night. That is, man, you hate to see that. That's.
But yeah, I guess if you want to fucking help Shane's legal bills, go check out Metal Men that I didn't even know was a thing from DC Comics.
Yeah, or support any one of the 12,000 Comic Gates affiliated Patreon or Kickstarter comic projects, and maybe it'll work its way back up to him. Who knows? I don't know how these things work.
Yeah, we'll see, I guess. I'm sure that Shane won't be quiet about it whenever he does decide to get on one of those platforms.
Yeah, well, considering we just found out he existed, I don't think it'll be a problem.
Oh, no, but I'm on Shane Davis watch now, so yeah. So we posted about this on our Instagram, which is @GutterBoysPod, in case you don't follow us. But in old man internet drama, old head cartoonist internet drama, Mike Mignola of Hellboy fame posted a Tony Salmons comic on his Facebook with the caption, "For no particular reason, The Hulk Fighting a Bear" by the great Tony Salmons. Well, Bill Sienkiewicz, who, I actually like Sienkiewicz. Some of his newer stuff that's like, just like portraits of celebrities and shit, whatever, that can kick rocks. But as far as like his comics work, I'm a fan. That stuff he did with Frank Miller kicks ass. But Sienkiewicz, I guess, was in his feelings on Facebook. And keep in mind, this is just a very tame post where it's just, literally a picture of a comic panel and Mike Mignola saying that he fucks with Tony Salmons. But Bill Sienkiewicz decided to comment, "I don't dislike too many people in our business, but Tony would qualify if I gave enough of a shit about him to care. He was fucking my wife in the early 80s, one of the reasons why I got divorced. So in that, he did me a favor. The two deserved each other. All in all, he's a talented douchebag. Emphasis on douchebag." So, do you think Sienkiewicz knows how the internet works? Like, do you think he thought that was like a DM to Mike?
It's hard to say. I wouldn't put past him not caring and just airing that stuff out and then, 20 or 30 minutes after the fact regretting it immediately. But
yeah, well, and that was also apparently on Mignola's like personal Facebook, so I guess that was a scoop. But someone we know had posted that on Twitter, and that's where we got it from. But apparently he blew up Sienkiewicz's spot by posting that because it was like Mike Mignola's friends only post.
Oh, hell yeah. That rocks.
So I don't think it was like supposed to come out like it did, but
if you're posting it on Facebook, I don't know.
Right.
Like I don't, like, what is his account like private or something?
Well, I think Mignola like has like certain posts that are set to friends only, and then like his promotional shit. Like if you just look him up on Facebook, you'll see that. But that post, like I went and looked and did some investigating, and I wasn't able to find the post. So I definitely wasn't able to see it, not being his friend. Have you ever met Sienkiewicz though?
No. When would I have?
I didn't know it's some kind of comic show. I've seen his booth.
Yeah, I don't care for his work, but so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, his booth is always like super pretentious looking. I've seen like pictures of it on the internet. He sets it up to look like an art museum. Like it has like makeshift walls and everything's hung up. This could have been, a San Diego Comic-Con type setup, something that's like over the top, but like I feel like those are the only shows that guy does.
Okay.
Yeah. Katie Skelly actually DM'd us that scoop as well. Like it's funny because we'd already posted it and Katie was like, "This sounds like Gutter Boys news."
Yes. On brand.
Yeah.
Speaking of Mignola, there was earlier on the year that whole fiasco relating to Scott Alley, who's a former Dark Horse editor. And it got so big that Mike Mignola had to go on social media and make like a big public statement about it and kind of distance himself safely away from that fire pit that was Scott Alley. So Guy Allen retweeted that and just went off on him, basically just breaking down how it was clearly his little PR statement about the situation was total BS. And I don't know. I love Guy Davis. Guy Davis is not only an amazing artist, but he also seems like the type of guy that isn't full of shit. And, he's one of the few guys at that level that doesn't constantly enjoy the waft of his own taint, Whereas Mignola definitely, at this point, it's just his brain is gone. So
yeah, I mean, I fuck with Mignola from an art standpoint. That Hellboy shit rocks. But yeah, I mean, him as a person, whatever.
And also how he dealt with Davis. I mean, I don't know if you remember all that stuff with the Hellboy and sort of the reason why the Hellboy movies stopped being with Del Toro.
Oh, no, I didn't know about that. What happened?
Oh, well, Mignola got really, really salty because Guillermo had hired Guy Davis to do a lot of the design work for the monsters. Mignola, I guess, had sort of this entitlement thing with Guy Davis, thinking he's my guy. He can't work on anything else. He'll be too busy. But it was a really well-paying gig. So I understand both parties were in a difficult situation, but like you can't be that disconnected from reality to realize that the artist that you want to work with is being offered a bigger gig for less work and much better pay, and will also get his name out to a much larger audience audience than a Hellboy title on the shelf.
Yeah, because Guy Davis was doing BPRD, right?
Yeah. And so I guess it got to the point where Guy Davis just quit the series outright because of the behavior that Mignola was having. But he also cited Alley early on. And this was in...
Well, if it was the Del Toro movies, this is probably 2012, 2013, because the new one that just came out was not Del Toro, right?
This was in 2011 is when he quit BPRD. And that's where they introduced the new artist, Tyler Crook.
Oh, dude, Tyler Crook rules. I love his stuff. He did a book called Harrow County. I don't know if you saw it. It was like a horror, kind of a witchcraft kind of story. It was cool.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with his work. But yeah, that whole thing stemmed from a disagreement about his gig with Del Toro, and that eventually resulted to Mignola not really wanting to work with Del Toro anymore. And then we ended up with the recent Hellboy movie, which I never saw, but I heard was really bad. But who cares? Whatever.
Yeah, I didn't see that one either. I didn't think that the dude from Stranger Things was a bad cast, though. I thought he kind of looked cool as Hellboy.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I guess like the actor of the year type, star of the year from show of the year type of deal. I guess he fits it, but you know, it's just it's lazy casting at the end of the day. You know, I mean, they could have looked for someone, but why look when you have this guy?
Yeah, that's fair.
And I'm not saying I mean, I don't know. I didn't see the movie. Again, I don't know. So
I didn't either. Yeah.
Actually, the making of that movie has some really interesting stories too.
The new one or the Del Toro one?
No. The new one.
Oh, okay.
So the director was Neil Marshall. I don't know if you're familiar with that director. He did Dog Soldiers. He did The Descent.
Oh, okay. I've seen The Descent.
He did. Yeah. He's done a couple of other movies, but this was going to be his like big budget kind of blockbuster movie. And during the filming of that movie, it was around the same time as some of the shady stuff about trafficking with like models and stuff like that to get deals and whatnot. It's very much tied back to the Me Too thing. But apparently Neil Marshall was rarely on set and was just busy, quote unquote, hanging out with these random models that would be brought to him on set.
Wow.
So he wasn't doing a whole lot of actual directing. I think the what is it called? Assistant? No, I don't know what the fucking title is. Second unit director? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Basically, yeah. The reason the movie is so fucking bad is because he didn't give a shit about it.
So the dude got his first breakout gig and then just like got a taste of Hollywood life and just ultimately just gave it all up on set. Just gave him the vices of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's worked on big budget films before, but nothing at this scale and nothing with something that's like a recognizable, I guess, brand like Hellboy. Mm-hmm. But yeah, he definitely dropped the ball because he was busy getting his balls touched. But I don't know. He's an older guy too. I mean, maybe this was the first time he'd seen a vagina. I don't know.
Hell yeah.
I think he listens to the show, but somebody sent me an image of this new comic that they were releasing. And this individual, I'm pretty sure he's white. Yeah, he's a white guy. And he's advertising his quote unquote short manga. Now, a couple things here. It's okay if you love manga and you're like not Japanese or whatever. That's fine. It doesn't matter. But if you consciously call your comic a manga and advertise it as such, and you're not Japanese, you're not making the book in Japan, am I missing something? What makes this a manga?
Well, because aren't manga just Japanese comics? Like, isn't that just...
So again, clarifying, this is not a Japanese comic. This guy is not Japanese. Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah, like, so pretty much, I guess, like, the novelty is that you just inverted it and made it read right to left.
I guess, did he? If he did, that's even more embarrassing if he did that.
Yeah, I think the book reads right to left.
Oh my God. Okay, damn. All right. Fuck. That's so bad. I'm sorry if you're listening to this right now. God damn. I didn't know he made it right to left.
I'm trying not to laugh because I like this dude.
Damn. Oh my God.
Oh.
All right. Okay. Let me just level with you. Don't do that. Just don't do it anymore. They're good drawings. They're good.
You should
and it's cool that you're making work, but please just ease off on that.
Oh, shit. So a couple quick things to plug here. Friend of the show that I feel like gets brought up every episode because we love them. MS Harkness was on Noah Van Sciver's YouTube web show. I don't know what that web show is called, but I know that you guys probably do. I bet if you type in Noah Van Sciver into YouTube, it will come up and you'll be able to find his channel and look for the MS Harkness interview.
Also, big shout out to Kyle Overkill over at Pages and Panels. It's a comics podcast. We were recently guests on, so that episode should be coming out actually before this episode comes out. So be on the lookout.
Yeah, it should be. If you're listening to this on Monday, it came out over the weekend.
Yeah. So yeah, Kyle was nice enough to have us on, and we talked a little bit about the show process, sort of a year-end review, I think, kind of talking about all the things that have been going on and how they've affected comics and whatnot. So if you're into a nice little summary of our show for the last 11 months, I think that's a good starting point.
Yeah, it was cool to be on the receiving end of things, so shout out to Kyle for having us. It was a lot of fun to do. You can find that at iTunes, Spotify, everywhere else, pages and panels. Speaking of podcast, the shadow that hangs over the Gutter Gang Nation of Ramon Villalobos. Ramon has unfortunately started a new podcast with a friend of the show, Daniel Irizarry. Daniel just did a book called Holy West with Seth Jacob that was successsuxsuccessfully kickstarted, but their podcast...
Ramon is posting.
Yeah, Ramon is busy posting. He gets some drawing done every once in a while, but you know what's really fucked up? Ramon actually posted it. There was a girl that I used to hook up with in college that like I'm just still friends with on Facebook. There's like just people I just haven't deleted on there, but I saw them. They posted a screenshot of one of Ramon's tweets about Gotham City, and I just wasn't ready for those worlds to collide, to be honest with you.
I don't know how to process that, but okay.
Yeah. Like, it was a funny tweet, It was about, there being so many rats and chemical spills in Gotham that they didn't need Batman, they needed OSHA. So I can see why somebody would find, the humor in that, but it was just really funny just seeing, a girl that has no relation to Ramon posting screenshots of Ramon's tweets on the Facebook timeline, unsolicited. But yeah, their podcast is called Mex Flintayo.
Mex Flintayo.
Yeah. In our DM, JB was saying that the production isn't as good as ours.
It's not. I'm just being real with Ramon. He wants me to be real with him.
Yeah, it is like a pretty good show, though. They've had a couple guests on there. We might end up on there one day. I don't know. Maybe. We'll see what happens.
No, we gotta do an X-Men book or something before he'll give us the time.
Yeah, the true outlaw of comics. And then one last plug to get in here, podcast related. There is a podcast out there called Masters of the Obvious. Previous guest and friend of the show, Buster Moody, on an episode before this new one that just came out. So the week before last, you can look it up in their archives. They gave us a nice little shout out on their show. So I listened to a couple of theirs. They're nicer than us, but they lean left still. And they definitely talk more about mainstream stuff, your Star Wars and mainstream comics. So if you wanted to listen to, some talk about, the other side of comics, the more popular side, I would definitely recommend checking out Masters of the Obvious. Did you see that tweet about the saying dudes rock, that it was like a wolf in sheep's clothing? Like, it was like, the tweet was like, you should watch out for people saying dudes rock because there's actually a lot of ties to misogyny and abuse towards women with it. And I'm like, what? I can't even say dudes rock anymore.
You're doing misogyny by saying dudes rock. I just want to say that.
Oh, damn. Yeah, unfortunately, second episode in a row, we've had bad news to report. Comics legend Richard Corbin passed away on Thursday. That was December the 10th. He was a little bit older, but it's still a huge loss, I feel like, to the comics community. Corbin was an incredible artist that had a style of his own and heads and shoulders above, I feel like, a lot of what was going on in mainstream comics when he was, making them. I actually just learned on Twitter that he painted the Meatloaf Bat Out of Hell cover, which makes so much sense when you look at it, but I did not know that he was the artist on that. So rest in peace to Richard Corbin. What was your favorite Corbin book?
We've talked about this before, but one of my favorite books is a comic drawn by Corbin called Punisher: The End, and it's one of my favorite Punisher stories. Corbin's art in it is amazing. It's just a really great story. Most of the work early on that I saw from him was a lot of the fantasy stuff, and I think what really got my attention was the covers that he did for Death Rattle, that old horror anthology comic. Those covers are killer, like every single one that he did.
I think I've got just one issue of that, but yeah.
Yeah, I think I have 2 or 3 of them, but yeah, they're really, really solid. He's also done some of my favorite Ninja Turtle covers too for the Mirage run.
I've seen a lot of those Ninja Turtle stuff posted since he passed, and that shit kicked ass.
Yeah, Corbin is
he was just
guys.
Incredible.
Yeah, he was untouchable. His work had a very tactile quality to it. You felt like you could go out and reach the thing on the other side of that panel, even if it was exaggerated, or his work wasn't about photo accuracy, even though he had a lot of elements that kind of hint towards it.
Yeah.
But his stuff just felt like it had a mass to it. And it probably helps that he was also a sculptor and would make miniature sculptures as references for a lot of his drawings. And that, I think, comes out through the drawings.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things that, like, such a distinct style, like, you could just look at it and immediately know it's, like, Richard Corbin. He did a book, I guess, in the past few years, I want to say through Dark Horse, it may have been IDW, but it was called Shadows on the Grave. And that book was actually fucking awesome. I think my favorite, I don't know about favorite, but a Corbin story I'm really attached to, just because I think it was, like, the first one I remember reading, was he did, like, a run on Hellblazer where Constantine goes to prison. And, like, I just remember Corbin, like, drawing like prison cafeteria fight scenes and stuff, and it was pretty sick. Did you ever check out that DC Solo series where like they gave like 12 artists, like, you could do whatever the fuck you want, and the book was called Solo, and you just got to do short stories or whatever you wanted with DC characters?
No, I'm not familiar.
He got to do an issue of that, and it was really good. Just his interpretation of playing in that sandbox. And yeah, I mean, it's just the heavy metal stuff, of course, the high fantasy, high concept stuff. It's just, yeah, what a talent.
Yep, there will never be another Richard Corbin.
Yeah.
And it does suck having to see him go. Yeah, it's been a weird year, man, for, not stating the obvious, but another comic giant is no longer with us. So, yeah.
Dan Slott, you're next. Yeah, so if you want to hear about our year-end picks and stuff, since this is typically where we would probably do that this time of the year, listen to that Pages and Panels podcast we were on. I feel like we got into that stuff for that show.
Well, I was going to say, we're probably going to do a year-end review on the 21st. All right, well, yeah, it's enough wasting of time. We got a guest just rearing to go.
Yeah. Also, our next episode will be us just kind of recapping the year. Whoever you think the biggest bitch in comics was for 2020, DM us.
Well, we want to know who are the biggest pimps and the biggest simps of 2020.
Yeah, so send us a top 3 simps and top 3 pimps of comics list to @GutterBoysPod on Twitter or Instagram, or email it to us at gutterboyspodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, and once we tally up all the votes, we will be able to announce the winners on the next episode.
Yes.
All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and when we return, we're going to be joined by Evan Salazar. So stay tuned. Okay.
Got like an itching in the back of my throat. I hit my vape too hard or something.
We'll be right back.
More muscle, more power, more than a hero, he's a legend. Not even the mighty Batman comics can contain them. Pumped up new heroes, massive new weaponry. Paraguardian Batman, a mighty blast from Batman's past. Cyborg Batman, present-day criminals wonder, is he man or machine? Future Batman rules the sky on power-packed wings of steel. Now Batman's more than a hero, he's a legend. Legends of Batman. Figures each sold separately.
We'll try to explain our thinking on how we're coming across and why we're doing overkill the way it is.
You can think and draw at the same time?
Yeah, and especially if it's going to be overkill, his equipment's got to be overkill as well.
Oh, heck yeah. Always remember he's tough, but he's not violent.
Okay, along those lines, he's got the biggest shoulder pads ever existed. It's like
I figured he would.
Okay, I'm going to give him some big knee pads here. Because a guy like him that's got some armor and got some guns and stuff like that is going to...
Boy, he looks grim, doesn't he?
Kids, the kids like the dark, moody stuff. I mean,
they seem
to.
But I have a question I've been wanting to ask you guys. Mm-hmm. How long does it take these people to get dressed, these kind of characters?
Who says they undress?
I mean, there's something they have to get out quickly to save the world, but it takes them an hour and a half to get into all of this stuff if they work fast.
That's right. Getting into the costume is like going to the bathroom in comic book. You never show it, but you assume that Superman and Batman and Spider-Man actually do go and urinate every now and then, right?
You're right, but you never do show it, do you?
No.
But you do show, very often you show people getting dressed, especially women. I seem to recall that now.
Yeah, no.
Do you draw hands? Are you into hands? Really?
Oh, yeah, I'm the best.
You do hands?
But why don't we give them here wires coming out here, coming down up?
They love that stuff.
The kids love wiring.
The wires that he'll trip over when he's running.
Oh, yeah.
Hey, you draw good wires.
Oh.
Does he have a double identity? Is he really a meek accountant in real life?
Who else could he be besides Overkill?
Well, I mean, when he takes off all these clothes, is he a 97-pound
Do you see him taking rough fist? Okay. With his thumb, he would have 3 different cannons that are facing for the large kapui. So right here, they could be like missile launchers or whatever. but he's going to have those right over here.
What
I mean,
makes
this
you
guy's
make
alive,
those
too.
value judgments? Why only 3? He's got 4 knuckles.
'Cause-
the reader's
And then
crazy.
this-
Why does he have more on that side than that side?
No.
For the sake of our unseen viewers, is this really the type of thought process that you guys go through when you
Yes.
create characters?
Except for we have more than 20 minutes.
This is probably longer than you usually
We do.
take. Well, I think I've got to say seriously, which isn't easy for me to do, but I think it's very impressive that in a matter of 20 minutes you guys could come up with something like this. I mean, bad as it is, it's still impressive that you were able to do it this quickly.
Well,
Yeah, that's a cool logo. That
Rob,
is really
didn't you
cool.
promise that you would draw and we would do the talking? And when you
sorry, I'm
grow
sorry.
up a little more, you know, we'll
Okay,
let you in
all
there
right,
with the grown-ups.
Well, when you were creating characters, Stan, what was the process back then? I mean, because Rob and I right now, we do our own writing and our own drawing. We don't collaborate with anybody anymore. So
That's the problem, and I've been meaning to talk to you guys about that. Boy, he is one grim-looking guy. There's no way this man can move. He's got to have a power to defy gravity, I would say, just looking at
He's
him.
a tank. I mean, what do you think?
Now, the funniest thing would be if you say that these are jets and he's the fastest man alive. That and the way you have him, we've got to justify all of this paraphernalia somehow.
Okay.
I don't know that you're really doing my character right. That's all right, I guess, for a
Yeah.
bunch of beginners.
Overkill
I
him.
just want you to, we have a minute
Oh,
and a half
the
or so.
foot.
I want to tighten those feet.
Okay.
All right, guys?
Okay, give him an ankle bone here, an ankle bone here.
I think it takes you longer to sign your name than
Heck
draw
yeah.
a picture, you know?
It is. I'm going to step out, okay?
Incidentally, you guys have ruined us. We've decided to give up comics and we're going into showbiz.
Now, back to our program.
And we're back from our break, and sitting with us virtually is cartoonist Evan Salazar, creator of the ongoing anthology Rodeo, and issue 2 is available now. So we're going to be talking a little shop about their work. Evan, thanks so much for hopping onto the pod.
Thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
Awesome,
Hell yeah.
awesome. And how's this lovely year treating you so far?
It's treating me the way I think it's treating most people. A lot of ups and downs, but also lots of just kind of plateaus. Weeks kind of get lost in the shuffle. You know what I mean? Just like
Yeah, that is certainly true.
Yeah, just like I was thinking the other day, like there's definitely been at least like a month or so where I didn't touch like a pen or a pencil or anything. Just kind of like was trying to just wake up and live and then go to sleep and couldn't think about much else.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I would say me and Cam have gone through. Yeah, it's like we're in some sort of, not quite hell per se.
If anything, it's more like a purgatory, some sort of limbo space.
Yeah, we
there
are
you go.
definitely in limbo, that's for sure. But luckily, comics are made in limbo anyway. So,
true.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, we got a lot of questions,
I
so
saw
we're going to
that,
circle
yeah.
around at the end, and I feel like a lot of the questions are going to be answered possibly in the interview. So if we don't end up, asking your question, it's probably because it got answered. But we're going to get to that at the end. So Evan, you're from one of the Carolinas, is that right? Asheville?
So I currently live in Asheville, yeah, but I'm originally from Tucson, Arizona, actually.
Okay, hell yeah. How long have you been in Asheville?
Been in Asheville for I think about 2 years now. Actually, maybe more than 2 years, 2.5 years, something like that.
Have you ever done Asheville Zine Fest?
No, I have not. I think the year that I moved here, I just missed it, and then I don't think they've done it since.
Okay. No, there was a running joke on the first few episodes. Like, Asheville was a really cool city, but that Zine Fest was...
That's right. Yeah, you and Blake really hated it.
Yeah, wait, I'm curious.
Dylan Drug Dogs and I had gotten a table, and we were right next to Pat Rooks and Ben Sears. So, the company was cool.
Yeah.
But, it was in this art gallery in the basement, but they wouldn't let people come in from the top, the actual gallery entrance. Mm-hmm. You had to, drive around the back of the building, and it was in this, where I would would imagine they unload like trucks. Like it was, there was a garage door and
people working their day jobs. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was like in this little warehouse that nobody could easily find. So everybody was like advertising it as at this art space, but like the art space was just closed and it like the doors weren't even unlocked or anything. So turnout was like kind of weird. And they had like readings, but it was like a small space. So like it was just super loud and kind of annoying when somebody was doing a reading just because like it was so loud and you were right there. And then they had stationed us right next to like an ice cream booth. Oh. So like it looked like we had a long line the whole day, but really people were just getting ice cream. So
did you take advantage of that?
The dudes were really cool and we traded them books for scoops. So
yeah, there you go.
So that was honestly the highlight.
That's honestly the best comics trade I've probably ever heard of. I don't want somebody's zine. I want ice cream.
Right, yeah. I don't need more books. I want ice cream.
Yeah, but as far as like, getting in the car and driving 6 or 7 hours to, not really move units or anything like that. Yeah.
Asheville's really pretty though.
Yeah, it was awesome. Like the city was cool as fuck. The drive was great, but the show,
Yeah, I mean, Asheville is it's absolutely gorgeous. I agree with JB. It's a beautiful place. And that was kind of what won me over when I first visited, because my girlfriend does pottery. She does ceramics, and Asheville has quite a lively like ceramics community and sort of just sort of scene going on here. So that was the primary reason that we moved here. But it's also, it's super gorgeous. Asheville, it's not totally my speed, to be totally honest with you. Sometimes it's a little too crunchy. It's a little too granola.
I
crunchy.
was just about to ask, how many drum circles do you usually walk past in a given day?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Honestly, these days during the pandemic, only 2 to 3 or so, No. If you go downtown, it's just, full on drum circles, drug rugs, a lot of just like people walking around with no shoes on. I see that all the time. I see so many people in like, a regular part of town or whatever, nothing like special, just no shoes on, just walking around. It's disgusting. But other than that, it's a beautiful, beautiful place.
So what's the comics scene like? The only other person I know making work there, and I could be forgetting somebody, but I know actually 2 people. There's Scott Hensel and then his partner Caroline. I think they're the only Asheville cartoonists that I know that are like, that I follow anyways. Is the scene pretty cool there?
I'm pretty
Besides
sure.
You, I mean.
I'm pretty sure they live in Raleigh. I could be wrong though.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they live like 4 hours like north of me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I met them at that Zine Fest and just assumed they were from there.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah, okay.
As far as the scene goes, I haven't really. I'm a pretty. What's the word? I like to be alone. You know what I mean? Like I like to be alone in my basement working on stuff. So there have been times where I'll meet people and they'll tell me about like a drawing club that happens somewhere, or little things like that. But for the most part, I kind of just keep to myself. There is Woolly Press. They're like a risograph print place. And
did they do a Mason Dickerson book?
They might have. They do a lot of stuff, and their stuff is really cool. I haven't really done anything with them yet, but the studio is like a 5-minute walk from me, so I've popped in from time to time.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, it's cool. And then, I mean, as far as a comic scene, not really. There's really no comic scene that I know of. There are a few cool comic shops. There's a lot of shitty comic shops here, too, in town. I won't say the names of the shitty ones, but the cool ones, there's like Comic Envy. Comic Envy's pretty cool. And then there's like the place called Mr. K's Books, which is like a big used bookstore, and they have a pretty cool selection of like comics and graphic novels and stuff. And yeah, there are comics around, but I wouldn't consider myself a part of any comics community here in Asheville.
Mm-hmm. Hell yeah. So when you're at a comic store, what are you usually looking for?
When I'm in a comic store, the first thing I go for sure is like the cheap bins, like the 50-cent dollar bins, because
hell yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely the first thing that I always zero in on, because, I'm sure you guys are the same way. I want to find the weird old stuff that, they printed like 50,000 copies of it in 1988 or whatever, and they all just sit in a box in somebody's basement. And, and that's the stuff that I'm interested in, because, for the most part, I'm not like a Wednesday guy. I don't really read superhero comics at all, but I'll read them if they're old and interesting to some degree.
Right.
Well, and the best part about like those boxes, to me anyways, is the fact that like they're really, more times than not even organized. So if you're just like going through the regular bins, like you're going to look through, like if you're in the B's, you're going to look through 1,000 issues of Batman. But there's like the whole thrill of like just what's going to be the next book and everything. And usually it's, like you said, some kind of like obscure thing that's just like more times than not, like I'm looking for like trash.
Like for sure.
Entertainment. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. And if I find something that's like legitimately good, I mean, it's a great day. Yeah. If I, but I feel like usually, especially like a Comic Envy, I've looked through their like cheap bins so many times. I'll flip through every single Batman comic, every single Spider-Man comic through the S's just to see if there's something, that's in there. Like I remember, I think I was going through there, and it's always fun when you find like a nice vein of some sort of book, in the boxes, like 5 to 6 copies of something. And I found it's like a Dark Horse Presents. It was like a Dark Horse anthology they did back in like, I think it was the late 80s, early 90s. And it has like Mobius in it. And then it has like Eddie Campbell stuff in it. And it's just, I found a nice, I found a nice grip of those. And I was like, oh, this is a successful bin diving day.
Yeah, that era of Dark Horse was like crazy. It was like Concrete with Paul Chadwick, and they were doing like a lot of Moebius, like Joe Dorowski stories, and then you'd have like Sin City in those issues. Like there's some good shit, and like you said, the Eddie Campbell stuff, there's some like good shit during those years in those issues of like also, DHP or whatever.
Yeah, there's also like I think in the ones I have, there's like a whole Predator comic, like the movie Predator. I forget who does it though, but it's entertaining to look at. It's well drawn.
Hell yeah. So let's get into a little bit of your process. You just released Rodeo #2, and you got a Mice grant for that, right?
I did. Yes, I did.
Yeah. Congratulations, man. That rocks.
Thank you.
What was the process of that like, because the first issue was self-published. I know you were kind of posting online. I know that like, you were hand assembling all of the first issue as well as Wimp Digest. And then the second issue, you had to send back like the first run because you weren't happy with the printer. And it was the first time that you kind of abandoned the DIY, approach to it. So what was like getting the grant like and, actually going to a printer for the second issue?
Getting the grant was, very easy, very cool. I saw that they, were running this thing and they offer like a small, I think it's very small. They offer you like $100 because they give it to like 20 different people. And then I think there's like a grand prize winner and they get like $500 or something like that. And I mean, I think I had like half of the issue of #2 drawn and inked, and they were looking primarily for finished things, but I sent them those pages being like, this is what I have, so I'm working on. And a few weeks before they made the decision, I got another email from them being like, hey, do you have any more pages to show us? Which to me, I took as like a good sign, like, oh, I guess they like what they see. So luckily I had sent some more pages. And yeah, I got an email, a few weeks later saying that I got the grant, which was fantastic, but it also meant that I had a fire under my ass, which is, maybe you guys can relate. One of the only ways comics really get made is to have like a deadline or someone being like, you need to finish this by this exact date. So that's what that was. Yeah. Like I had only had, at that point I had, a little bit more than half the issue done. And so I had to be like, well, shit. They said, there was some sort of arbitrary date, like by November 1st, you have to send your comic to the printer or whatever, however you're deciding to do it. So I was just like, I did not meet that date. I think I sent my comics to the printer like a week later or something, which was, it was a printer that was suggested to me by some of our cartoonist friends. I'm sure friends of the pod, Josh Pettinger, and some other people use this comics printer, and they all had great things to say about them. But when I got my comics from them, I was, very excited. Obviously, I opened it up, the package, and all the comics were just like completely warped. Like all the pages were like super wavy, and not in the way where it's like, no one's going to care. Like they won't notice. Like it was a very noticeable waviness to the pages, which was really frustrating for me. And especially because like, I had to message them and send them all these pictures, and they were like, well, is it because of this, that, and the other thing that you did? And I was like, no, it wasn't. Like, I'm pretty sure it was on your end. Like, I got the package. They were like this. I didn't touch them. So it kind of became this whole thing. And then once they finally agreed to reprint them, it was the week of the election. And I guess just like pretty much all mail that week, I don't know if you guys experienced this, but all mail that week got completely fucked up.
Oh,
and yeah. So like I had this, package of comics, and I already had people's money at this point. People had already paid for the comic because I thought I had them in hand, but I didn't. So for a whole week, like I was just like sort of feverishly refreshing my tracking information on that package of comics and just, waiting and trying to, because it wouldn't update. It wouldn't even tell me where it was. And I was just like, God damn it. Like I was just sweating over it. Cause again, it was this weird guilt thing over like people already bought it. And I, and so I know everybody understands, especially people who are into like independent comics, they know that it's not easy to get these things out into the world, but still I was sweating it a bit. But then they showed up and they look great. And I was happy with the print job and everything. It's my first time working with a printer, and I think in the future I'll for sure work with printers again, but I think I'm going to either go local or go friends, because I know a lot of people who have different sort of, initiatives and studios and print shops and things like that. So I was just like, if I have to do like a big job like this again, I should just go to friends or go local instead of like, for some reason, getting things shipped across the country. It just doesn't really make much sense. And, looking back on it.
So if you have a physical copy of Rodeo #2, when you open it up in the cover, there's like some additional material. You did the little like library book pouch with like, fake library cards and like a mini comic and a drawing in there. Was that something that the printer did for you, or did you glue all those in and assemble that yourself?
I glued all those in and did those all myself. The mini comic as well. I printed the mini comic. I have like a sort of mid-tier inkjet printer scanner thing that I print all my other stuff on. So I just printed it off on that, cut them all myself, staple it all myself. And then, I bought those little library card pouch things like from some like internet, I don't know, like sort of directory thing where like libraries get their supplies. And so those showed up, and they have a nice like adhesive back on them. Just stick them on. And it came out really nice. I was really happy with how those came out.
Yeah, it looks great, and it sets it apart, and I honestly thought the printer did it. I mean, that's how good it looks. Like, sometimes, when you're doing things yourself, like, me, not you, but, if something's not perfectly aligned, like a staple or like, a page, that shit just happens. But yeah, no, it looks great presentation-wise. There also was a format change, though, in size. Mm-hmm. You had, like, the standard, like, I feel like half zine, like half piece of paper zine size for the first one, and then Rodeo 2 was, your traditional comic size. Are you planning on staying at that size? I think we asked Pettinger the same thing, but kind of interested with like, the book changing shapes and size and format.
I've been wondering the same thing myself. I'm not sure I'm convinced on the comic book size. I don't know what it is, but do you guys like when you get a new comic, if it's comic book size, it feels weird to me. I don't know exactly what it is. I think, and I know Cam, you and I have like messaged about this. I think the magazine size is probably one of the greatest comic book formats that there is. I would love to do something at that size, but I've kind of shoehorned myself into doing something that's either comic book size or digest size, because so most of like the bulk of Rodeo is going to be collected into a book, years from now is the sort of idea. And so I want to make sure that there's at least some sort of consistency as far as the way it looks and panels and that kind of stuff. So I've kind of like married myself to the idea of like, if I draw on like Bristol board, it's 10 by 15 live area. And I'm like, okay, whatever I can fit into that, live area is what it'll be. So I can't really go any bigger than that, but I like digest size. I kind of like digest zine size. It's got a nice feel to it. And I also think that no matter what, comic art always looks better when it's like reduced in size. I can't explain why that is, but I just think, when you take a big drawing and put it on, like a 5 by 7.5 paper, it just looks so good for some reason. At least to me it does. So I don't know, honestly, I'll probably continue to do comic book size for the next couple issues, but once I'm done with the story I'm working on, I'm excited to try something different.
Hell yeah. Yeah, my preferred size is 8 by 10. I think that's like amazing. But yeah, traditional comic size, it's just such a weird, it's just like weird dimensions. Like I get it, it makes sense, and I guess it's the industry standard. But I mean, I would even prefer like a golden age size over this, like, just slightly larger, like it doesn't make it look as like awkward.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, there's something, I wish I could put my finger on exactly what it was about like the standard comic book size, but it just always, there's just something off about it that I can't put my finger on.
Speaking of Josh Pettinger, you two worked on a small anthology called Wimp together, which was also in a digest format, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. Was that just a one and done type thing, or were there any intention of like continuing that as an anthology?
Yeah, we definitely want to do more of those for sure. I think, because we made that at the beginning of the pandemic, and that's when we all kind of were like, oh, what should we do? And I was kind of avoiding working on Rodeo 2 because it was such like a serious, I don't know, like the way my brain works, I'm like, oh, that's like my serious comic work, whereas anything else I can kind of be a little bit more loose with. And so him him and I were like, let's just do a quick little zine that's like fun, no pressure, and we can just continue to make these and they can be whatever we want them to be. Like we've talked about our next issue being about comic strips about our dogs. So that might be Wimp Digest #2, stories about our dogs, because we're both obsessed with our dogs. So yeah, it's kind of this place for us to do whatever we want. I really want to do another one. It's just busier than I thought I would be, and I think he's the same way too. We wanted to do a #2 by the end of the year, but that obviously did not happen.
It was a fun book. I loved it. And it was, I remember getting it right at the beginning of the pandemic. And like, it was like one of the things that like, I remember coming out and like actually being excited for. So it was nice to, get that, just staying at home.
Appreciate
so
that.
How did you, like, I feel like you and Josh, Josh said that you all were supposed to hit the show circuit together this year, before the pandemic kicked in. Like, how did you all link up? Was it just on the internet? I feel like you guys are always like kind of teaming up or.
Oh yeah, we definitely we're
in the same conversation.
God, at this point, whenever he put out #3, I used to have this blog with a friend of mine, and I wrote about Goiter 3 because, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but when I saw Goiter 3, I was like, oh, he is head and shoulders above the pack of like everybody else doing like self-published stuff right now. In my eyes, like I just think Josh is like a legitimate cartooning genius. And so I just wrote this like effusive thing trying to become his friend essentially. And I sent it to him being like, hey, I wrote this thing about your comic. And instead of being like weirded out by that, he was like, oh, cool. And, we just were kind of like Instagram friends for a bit. But then I think it was maybe 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, I went to Chicago for a friend's wedding, and I was just kind of like, fuck it, I'll see if Josh wants to get a drink. So I just messaged him and was like, hey, want to drink some beers and talk about comics? And he was like, yeah. And so we met up and we just, hit it off and became friends. And from there, we just kind of have sort of decided that our comics journey is going to be with each other. Him and I are constantly sending each other pages and drawings and things, just, trying to get like a second opinion on stuff because, as you guys know, comics can be such a lonely thing, especially when like you're working on something and you have like 10 pages of it and you're just like, is this good? I can't even tell if what I'm doing is good.
Yeah.
So it's really nice to have a friend that you can just be like, hey, is this good? Because Josh and I are also like brutally honest with each other. I feel bad. One time Josh sent me something and I tore it to shreds. And so this is me apologizing to Josh on air because I was like, oh yeah, this is why. These are all the reasons this is bad. But I think him and I both appreciate that in each other, and it makes our work better at the end of the day because you just need that sort of, third party critic to sort of deconstruct your work for you, I guess.
Well, and it's like strange is like I'm the exact opposite of that. Like JB and I are in some group chats and like a lot of them, like JB and the participants in those chats, they share a lot of work. I'm very like I only put like work up once it's pretty much done. And the reason that is I just feel like all my friends are so much better than me that like I don't even want to hear what they have to say. So I just
Shut up.
Well, no,
Yeah,
I'm being dead serious. No, I hate like the way my process, the way it works is like I feel like I've got to keep up in like a friendly way with everybody else. And like I just feel like I don't know if I would have the heart to, because it's really strange. Like, I started my journey in comics as like a fan of a lot of the people that I'm like DMing with now, saying like JB, I was a fan of JB's work before I ever like met him. So it's like, so it's just one of these weird things where it's like, I'm not going to make this if somebody like tears it apart. So I just make it, throw it at the wall and hope it sticks. And like, I'll take all the praise, whatever I can get afterwards. Like I never workshop. Right. It's bizarre and probably not good for my work.
But JB, you workshop stuff? You like?
Oh yeah,
get people's opinion. Yeah,
I'm of the opinion that like you said, since doing this particular line of work is very kind of alienating to begin with, since you're isolating yourself and you're just working in a room, I'm of the opinion that it is important to get feedback. Every cartoonist, whether they know it or not, is giving feedback and getting feedback from other cartoonists, some more directly than others. So I think it's like super important that you do have this sort of small circle of cartoonists and people that you can bounce off ideas and throw your work at and get notes from to improve your craft. That's really the only way you can do it, because otherwise it's just one person babbling to themselves in their room.
Right. Yeah. That's the exact way I feel. Yeah.
Yeah, like, see, and I'm the exact, like, I remember one time I had put out a book and Alex Null was like one of the first people to give me like constructive criticism, like pretty early on when I first started making comics. And like, I was just like, well, the book's out. The only thing I could do is take that, what he said, his feedback, and try to implement it into the next book. So it's like me just like working on like, oh, well, you guys said this about the last one. Let's hope I can, nail it on this one. But yeah, I don't know. It's super weird because like I hate having to redraw things if I don't have to, like once it's pretty much finished. So it's like, I don't want the tone of some of the chats that I'm in, like, I feel like I would get fucking roasted for having like a forearm not the right dimension. So I'm just like, I'm not fucking with this.
No, come on.
Well, no, not ours. Not the gutter gang one, but you know the one.
See, that's why you gotta. For me, there's like criticism that I'm open to, and criticism where I'm like, oh, I don't care. Like if somebody, like for instance, like I think I sent Josh a panel from Rodeo 2, and I was working on it, and I was like, oh, it's with like a guy, and there's like a bike, and I was like, oh my god, like the size is way off. Like that bike is way too huge for the guy, right? And he was like, yeah, but who cares? And I was like, yeah, exactly. So I just didn't even cared about fixing it, because the person who's like reading your comic and being like, this bike is clearly too big for this cartoon character, just like, fuck you, it's a comic, it doesn't really matter, so
I hope an editor got fired for this bumble.
yeah, exactly. Oh, so embarrassing. But that's the thing, if someone was ever like, Evan, you're like, foreshortening is bad, I'd be like, yeah, I don't know how to draw, like I whatever. So but then there's other things where like I really will listen to criticism very closely, and it's good to do so, I think. So I don't know, Cam, you should just fucking throw it out there, show people your stuff. People want to see it too, I think. I want to see it,
Yeah, well, I have a deadline, like you said, working to a deadline. Like, I've got 2 things I'll have some stuff out in the spring.
Sick.
Yeah, we'll see what's going on there. Back to like more of your process though. Are you drawing every day? Because I know that like, Rodeo, the first issue came out last year. This one came out a year later. So there was a year between books.
Yeah.
I know we haven't really announced it yet, but you did do a story for an anthology that we're about to put out for our 2nd anniversary. And you did the Wimp Digest. Were you drawing just Rodeo 2 in between all that stuff, or?
Yeah. In between Rodeo 1 and Rodeo 2, which was like a little bit more than a year. I was pretty much just focusing on Rodeo 2. And I was probably drawing every day, but, some days were more than others for sure. And plus, pre-pandemic, when I had a full-time day job, it was kind of more like I went to work, and then when I would come home, I would probably draw for like 3 to 4 hours or something. But a lot of times I would get stuck on stuff, and I would just kind of let a page sit for like a week, and not even touch it, maybe just think about it a bit and then come back to it. I have kind of like a scattershot approach to everything. Like I kind of try to juggle a lot of stuff at once, and hopefully all those things kind of land at the same time as far as writing and thumbnailing or ideas and drawing and this kind of stuff. And I just kind of try to do them all at once, and hopefully they all come out at the same time. But yeah, for Rodeo 2, it was it was not like a clock in, clock out, 8-hour a day kind of thing. It was definitely, in the hours I had afforded to me. But then with this year, with there being, nothing but time now, I did make like a very regimented schedule, which again, I did not stick to, but it at least was a reference for me to like keep myself focused. I had like a whole chart, with like boxes where I was like, all right, like page 1, there was pencils and there was ink, and page 2, pencils, inks, et cetera, et cetera. And then I had a calendar that was like pencil this page today and then ink it tomorrow, and et cetera, et cetera. And that helped me definitely just to keep myself on top of it. It's just a way to, even if you don't follow, or I didn't follow it to an exact T and I was late, just having that there to like check something off manually, it gave me a reason to like, finish a page, because I was so desperate to put a little check mark in that box next to, page 4 inked or whatever. It's because it made me feel like there was some sort of forward momentum, even if it was slow paced. But for the most part, I mean, and again, in the pandemic, it's hard because there were definitely been weeks where I haven't drawn anything, and there have been weeks where I haven't drawn anything, quote unquote, seriously. I'm a very like compulsive doodler, and I don't post any of that stuff really ever, but like, I have tons of just sketchbooks filled with this like, scribbles, essentially. It's just like a way to sort of calm my mind. And then there's, my comics work, which is I strive to be very refined. I put blood, sweat, and tears into that stuff. And that stuff is hard to do, but it's the most gratifying at the end of the day.
Well, and you did, we didn't talk about it yet, but you did put out it was a pretty substantial size, like sketchbook zine with some comics in it as well this year.
Yeah.
And that was, I think it was like raising money. I forgot exactly which organization.
Yeah, it was raising money for, it's called the Black Alliance for Just Immigration. And I chose them because there's another organization that I always kind of do fundraising stuff for. I'm doing a fundraiser print this year that I'll be able to post about soon for a place called the Florence Project, which is from Arizona. And they offer like free legal and humanitarian aid to people in ICE detention camps.
Hell yeah.
on the border. So that sketchbook zine, like all that stuff is stuff that would never see the light of day ever, except I was like, oh, I want to do something. I want to raise some money. And I have, all these drawings sitting around that I don't intend to ever do anything with. So I was like, and I'm not totally embarrassed of them. So might as well make a little book and, in the future, it can go on my table, another thing to put on the table. So.
I know that Rodeo has pretty much been, made while you were in Asheville. Were you making and putting out comics while you were in Arizona?
So I've kind of bopped around a lot as far as where I've lived. So before Asheville, I actually lived in New York City for 5 years because I was working in television and film production there.
Oh, shit.
Because I thought that's what I wanted to do. That was my whole intention of moving to New York, was like, oh, I'm going to work in TV and movies. And then I got there and I was like, oh, this is not the industry for me at all. When I was there was when I kind of got more into comics. Like I've always been into comics since I was like, a little kid, but it was in New York, especially when I was getting very disillusioned with film and television. Because moving there, I'm like, oh yeah, like I'm going to make a film. I'm going to make a movie. You meet all these people who are your age and just as sort of excited about making a movie. And then you are a PA on a set for a day and you're like, this is the worst experience I've ever had.
Yeah.
It's like I've worked 20-hour days, on these sets and just doing nothing. And actually that was where I sort of taught myself how to draw, because I would truly be on sets for like 20 hours a day. And I worked at a soundstage. So I wasn't on the crews. I was sort of like the stage manager, and, I would fetch equipment and deal with problems and talk to producers and this and that. And a lot of that time was spent just truly just sitting and doing nothing. So it was then that I kind of taught myself how to draw, or, sort of try to find a style. And so that job was very conducive to comics. So I could teach myself how to do it. And I had nothing but time. But yeah, in New York, I would go to like CAB, the Comic Arts Brooklyn show, and, I would go to Desert Island and I would, see some talks and stuff. But, I wouldn't say I was a part of any sort of comics community because I didn't really have any comics out at the time. I've done a few comic zines that are pre-Rodeo that are out there in the world, but they will never, ever get reprinted ever. So if anybody can find them. Did you put
your own name on them?
I think my name is on them. Yeah. And like one of them, I don't think anybody has. I don't think I sold a single copy of the first one I did. And then the second one, there is a like independent bookstore, used bookstore called Human Relations in Brooklyn. And they have like a zine, like, section. And I was just like, fuck it, I'll put my zine here. And I came back like a week later and all 3 of the zines were gone. And instead of being excited, I was a little bit mortified that anybody had bought it, which is what kind of led to Rodeo, because I was like, man, I want to feel good about putting out a comic. Like, I don't want to feel bad that somebody bought my comic because I'm not super proud of everything in it. So once I put out that comic, which must have been like 2016, I think it was called Just a Bunch of Comics is what it was called. It was very like amateurish, very like I wouldn't say crass, but it was very like fuck you kind of like zine thing, the comics everybody makes when they first get into comics. It was that kind of thing. And so yeah, after that I was like, okay, I want to pump the brakes a little bit, and if I'm going to put something out, I want it to be something that I think is, I don't know, represents me better than this. So yeah.
Nice. So did you work on any cool sets, or was it anything?
I have had some cool experiences on sets. I shot the shit and hung out with Carly Rae Jepsen for a while because she shot a music video. Yeah, that was very cool. And then they shot like, what else did they shoot there? So primarily where I worked, we shot a lot of reality television shows. Specifically, we shot Forged in Fire and Beat Bobby Flay. And I don't know if you're familiar with either of those.
Your blade is curvaceous and sexy, and it will kill.
That's the sword show, right? I know Bobby Flay, but isn't Forged in Fire like a sword maker show? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, Yeehaw loves that show.
Yeah, that show is ridiculous. And I worked on that show for a long, long time. And then, we'd have things like Naomi Watts filmed the movie there. And then I think they shot a few scenes from, what was that movie? I think it's called The Big Sick with like Kumail Nanjiani. And I think like Judd Apatow was the producer. So I saw him and I was like, oh, whoa, weird. Because that was the thing. Most of the people I didn't really get to talk to, I would just see and be like, oh, cool, I saw this person. But occasionally I could like kick it with the person. Like Carly Rae, she was really cool, actually.
She seems nice. Yeah.
Yeah, she was super nice. Yeah.
Did you ever make a comic about your experiences working on a soundstage like that?
I've definitely thought about it. just because I did experience a lot of crazy shit. That job, there was a lot of crazy shit with that job. And I actually, like, in that Just a Bunch of Comics thing, there are these 2 characters I created who are essentially me and my coworker. Cause like that job, we fucked off on that job so hard. Like there was an empty lot next door. We would just smoke weed in that lot and like walk back over.
Yeah.
And people be like running around with lights and we're like, what's going on? And it was like a very funny, one time I had to sleep in that empty lot because I locked my keys inside of the studio and it was like 1 a.m. and everybody was gone. So I had to like sleep in this empty lot in this like old like leather chair that was like rained on and snowed on and stuff. It was really miserable. So I actually wrote a comic about that too. I think it's in one of those early comics I did. So I have thought about it. I thought there is some stuff to mine from there for sure. If anything, maybe in like making some kind of like highly fictionalized version, but something. Yeah, there's definitely tons of material to mine.
So are you in like any kind of guild?
No. This job was super. There was no unions, and in fact, like it was so sketchy. Truly, like I had to be on the lookout for like union bosses.
Oh,
like
shit.
my boss was like, if you see like this guy, let me know. I'll come over and I'll talk and all this stuff, because it was a lot of the things that filmed there were not union crews, which was it kind of fed into like the place because the prices were. It was a kind of like a ramshackle operation. I don't want to name the soundstage I worked at. I can tell you guys off mic, but it was definitely a bit of it was a kind of a fly by night sort of operation sometimes as far as that kind of stuff went.
Sounds like some Sopranos shit.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Alrighty. So we did get quite a bit of questions for Evan, and a lot of those questions are going to lead to what we would have covered in our traditional interview. So we're going to go ahead and get into those.
Cool.
Alrighty, so as always, if you have questions for us or our guests on the show, we are on social media at GutterBoysPod on Instagram and Twitter, or you can email us at gutterboyspodcast@gmail.com. We usually put up like in our story a little form where you can submit questions, and we also post where you can, ask in the comments, or you can just DM us. Yeah, we're getting better at checking the emails, so I check it at least, a couple times a week. Feel free to send them over there. So friend of the show and previous guest, Caroline Cash, asked, what's next for Rodeo?
Caroline, she's so talented. They're amazing. Next for Rodeo, Rodeo number 3, I guess, is next. My whole goal with Rodeo, I sort of had this thing in my brain. So I'm turning 31 tomorrow. And since I started drawing comics, I was like, okay, by the time I'm 35, I want to have like a collected book of stories or whatever. It feels like enough time to have enough stuff to make a book. So yeah, Rodeo 3 is just continuing the story that I've done in 1 and 2. I have it all pretty much mapped out in my head, the entire arc of stories. Going to be like 7 chapters. This is the 3rd chapter. And yeah, just going to keep on trying to be bigger, do more stuff. Like, like the library card in Rodeo 2, I really want to do a similar thing in Rodeo 3. I think I'm going to try to create like a fold-out map, I think, is what I'm going to do for that one, because Rodeo 3 it's a sort of like a road trip story. So I want to, put some sort of, thematic little extra in there. So probably going to be a map, but obviously that could change, at any moment. So no one quote me on there's going to be a map in Rodeo 3, but there might be. There might be.
When you hit 7, are you done with Rodeo, or I don't know if you've thought that far ahead, but I know you said it was a 7-part story.
I've kind of like, my plan is to do Rodeo until I die, essentially. Like I want Rodeo to be the place for my long form comics stories, like this always, I want it to be like an 8-ball or whatever,
right.
So it's going to be, I have it kind of in my head. It's kind of inspired by Love and Rockets. So they have like volume 1 and volume 2, and then, the new stories and that kind of stuff. So the first 7 stories are going to take up volume 1 of Rodeo. And then whenever that's over and the next one starts up, that'll be volume 2. And, they'll just kind of, once each cycle kind of finishes the story, they'll become a new volume.
Sick. So another question for you, Evan, came from user Sad Boy Angry Man. That's Frank there. Frank asked, what's Evan's writing process like?
Sup, Frank? My writing process is, like I said earlier, it's a little scattershot. I will start off by just accumulating ideas, and just like writing them in a notebook with whatever they are, like little sketches or sentences. And eventually, when I feel like I have enough of those little things that will make an interesting story, I'll start to try to find, connections between these little things. And next thing you know, I'm starting to, form character motivations and all this stuff. And so once I feel like I have enough of this like preliminary sort of thinking done, I will do the flashcard method, which is like, I'll just, take a bunch of flashcards and I'll draw just sort of what I see as key scenes from the book. And then I'll start building around those key moments. And I sort of just, flood myself with tons of little index cards. And then from that step, it's such a long process. From that step though, I'll look at them, then I'll start adding my dialogue or narration boxes to those. And I'll start stripping away and adding stuff. And eventually it all ends up as like thumbnails. Like I'll take all of, these journals and, note cards and all that stuff, and I'll synthesize it into thumbnails. And from there, I don't touch it. Well, like once the thumbnails are there, I can't go back and keep messing with stuff, or else I'll never do the comic, So I've kind of like, once I have it written, I just go from there. But a lot of times too, I'll usually know. Well, that's not true. I was going to say I usually know what I'm going to draw or write for any given panel, but that's not true. A lot of times I'll have like, pages of thumbnails, and then there'll be a page where it'll be like, figure it out when you draw it. So it's kind of like, I kind of dread those pages, because when I get to that point in penciling and inking, I don't have anything to go off of because I couldn't think of anything at the time. So it's kind of like, oh, now I got to come up with stuff. And I don't know if he wants me to be this exact, but as far as like the actual writing, like, my captions and speech bubbles and all that stuff, like I'll sit and I'll think of what I wanted to say, and I'll write it down on a piece of paper, and I'll say it out loud countless times and try to find the right words, the right punctuation, the right flow, all that stuff, until I feel like it kind of sings with the rest of the panels on the page, and it all kind of has a nice flow to it. So yeah, I'm very I get very granular when it comes to that stuff, but yeah.
I know you said you had like a lot of the Rodeo, like the first volume 1, I guess, kind of mapped out. Do you have that like written out as well, or is it just kind of just something that's marinating in your head?
No, it's all kind of in my head.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all mostly in my head. Yeah.
Alrighty. So next question came from Instagram user Mark Makes Things. Mark asks, can you ask Evan about his upcoming music project and how his music or music in general influences his comics?
Hey, Mark. Yeah. So I've been playing music since I was like a teenager. I'd play in like punk and hardcore bands and stuff, and kind of lost that there for a while. But just recently during the pandemic, because I have nothing but time now, I was like, fuck, I'm going to get back into home recording. So I've been doing a lot of home recordings here in my basement studio. And I don't know how much my music sort of crosses over with my comics, but I can definitely say that my approach to comics and the sort of DIY punk thing, I kind of approach comics with the sort of DIY punk ethics that I would in a band, as far as like doing it yourself, making it accessible, not making just, boring commercial bullshit or whatever, and just doing stuff that interests me specifically. Because that's the thing, is all of Rodeo is just, it was me trying to make a comic that I would want to read, that I didn't think maybe exists out there. Like, that was the only way I could think of making Rodeo good, is if I was like, all right, like, what kind of comic do I want to read? And so in that way, it's kind of with music as well. I'm not a great musician by any stretch. I like I said, I play punk and hardcore music. So, just music for people who don't know how to play instruments. So it's always a bit more about, just the sort of passion on the page or in the music or whatever. So yeah, I try to, approach them with the same sort of DIY ethics as far as that kind of stuff goes. And also it's just, both are just things I enjoy doing, that I have fun doing. And that's kind of also the most important part for me about those things. That was a rambling answer, but yeah.
Oh, no, you're good. Are you still listening to a lot of punk and hardcore, or?
It's one of those things too, where I wasn't, for the past probably like 5 years of my life. I sold all my records, and I, got into like 70s, like psych bands, and I got into like guitar country and all that kind of stuff. And I got, way off the punk sort of bandwagon. But then once I wanted to start playing music again, I knew that I am not able to play any other genre of music competently than hardcore and punk. I'm not a proficient musician. So I was like, I want to get back into punk and hardcore. So I pulled out the records I still had, and I, tried to find some new bands. And so, yeah, I've been listening to a lot more punk and hardcore lately, honestly, than I have in probably the last like 5 years of my life.
Any notable bands that you've been really into lately?
Lately, yeah. Let me look. Lately, I've been really into a lot of like anarcho UK bands from like the late 70s, early 80s. So bands like Zounds or Thatcher on Acid, Crass. What was it? There's another band that I really like, Political Asylum. So a lot of those like UK anarcho bands, I've sort of like rediscovered them and really excited by them. And then as far as recent stuff, there's a great, I think they're from Portland. They're called Suck Lords, and they're really fucking good. They just play really, fast, snotty, mean punk. They're
Nice.
7 inches, like, 3 minutes long or whatever. So I've been really into that stuff. And then I wonder what else I've been into. I don't really know. Oh, I've also been listening to a lot of like, man, Raw Powers, another old great classic hardcore punk band. Yeah, they're amazing. I've also been, because I've been trying to find stuff to get inspired by, and actually the first Angelic Upstarts album, I don't know if you guys have listened to that. It's like it's pretty like straightforward oi music, but it's so good, and it's been really, I put it on all the time now. It's a great like wake up in the morning, get some energy kind of record.
Nice.
So following up on punk kind of questions, friend of the show, Strangers Fanzine, asked pros and cons of Breaking Edge.
What's up, Eddie Strangers Fanzine, for your listeners who don't know, is like it's one of the greatest fanzines going right now. There's been a fanzine renaissance of like the past 2 years.
Sure has.
Yeah, I just know Bubbles and Strangers, but I mean, like, I feel like they've got the game on lock.
Oh yeah, for sure. So shout out Eddie. As far as Breaking Edge, it's funny. I broke Edge when I was 21, so it's kind of like I just followed the law essentially. But I'll tell you this: the pros and cons of Breaking Edge. The pros of Breaking Edge is weed. That is the major pro of Breaking Edge. The major con of Breaking Edge is that you don't get to claim straight edge anymore, and every straight edge person knows that, like, you are a freak if you're straight edge. It's just, like, as simple as that. Like, every straight edge person you've ever met is, like, a weirdo in some way, especially, like, straight edge people over the age of, like, 25, because they'll probably never break edge, and they have a true lock on being outsiders of society. So I'm a little jealous of them, to be honest, to be, like, a 40-year-old man with, like, gig posters all over my wall, quoting Floor Punch still. Like, those are the things that I wish I could still claim to hold on to some kind of cred, but unfortunately, I smoke too much weed now.
Amen.
I was Edge from 14 to 16 , so
oh wow, 2 years.
Hell of a run there.
That is such a weird age too to do that.
Well, it was pretty much when I first started going to shows until I smoked a blunt outside of a show.
Oh,
so
there we go.
Yeah,
it's like, I can't legally consume alcohol, but none for me, thanks.
Right.
Did you end up on howsyouredge.com? Is that still a thing?
I don't think that's a thing, but I did not. I did not, thankfully. I wonder if there must be some like internet archive of that somewhere.
Yeah, goddamn.
All right, next question is from Nate Garcia's Cartoons. They ask, favorite work from Klaus? And was 8-Ball one of the reasons you chose the one-man anthology format?
As far as Klaus goes, my favorite Klaus book is probably The Death Ray. I just think it's like his best. I think it's most indicative of like what comics can be, and I don't think a lot of things have really compared to The Death Ray, in my opinion, as far as just like art and storytelling and pacing and just, I mean, everything about it is pretty brilliant. But I also really love, there's a story that he did in 8-Ball called Like a Weed, Joe, that I think is like, it's his best writing, I think. I think it's like, Klaus's best writing, and it's a very influential story to me. And then, which is to say that, yeah, I mean, 8-Ball, I mean, I don't know any cartoonist right now who wouldn't say 8-Ball is some influence in some kind of way.
Right.
But but yeah, I mean, yeah, 8-Ball is huge. I mean, it's even reading it now, I did a big reread of it about like a year or so ago. And I mean, a lot of stuff can't compare to it. Like, he really is the master. Like, I really do like love, it's just like, I just don't, it's just, he's so good. And a lot of stuff just can't compare to the quality that he puts out. But yeah.
You also think about all the different stories that were packed into 8-Ball over its run. And if you just put just a list of those stories up, those are like the top tier stories of small press comics.
Oh,
right.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Like, I can only think of like, there's only a few stories. I think there's one story that he hasn't ever reprinted called, I think it's called Glue Destiny. It's from like, it's like a middle, I think it's from like number 10 or whatever. That's like the only one that he's like, oh yeah, I don't like this one. And I can see what he's saying, because everything else he's done is just like perfect. That this okay story next to everything else is like, oh yeah, we can leave that one out, because everything else is just, I mean, there's really no, everyone has waxed poetic about Daniel Klaus for, decades now, but I mean, I'll happily add to the waxing,
Right, yeah. There's a reason why people do. It's because he's great.
Yeah, he's amazing. I mean, he's just like, he's the perfect synthesis of, to me, art and storytelling, because he can draw like nobody else and he can write like nobody else. Like, he just does both so well.
How do you all feel about his lettering, especially in those early issues, like Velvet Glove and stuff?
It gives it a style. You hate it? You hate it?
Yeah, I fucking hate it.
I have a different opinion, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't hate it. It's definitely not it's not the most readable thing in the world, you know, when he's doing all the little like serif stuff or whatever it is he's doing. But I don't know. It feels very him, and I like it. It's fine. Aesthetically, I like it, but reading it, I'm like, this is kind of difficult to read.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. It's just like, it's hard to read, and I'm kind of just like, man, there's like no telling how many hours you spent lettering this when it could have been, just much more legible and straightforward. But at the same time, it also sets it apart from a lot out there. So
for sure.
Nate also had 2 other questions. Nate, if you're going to ask us a question, just ask one question next time. Okay, they ask also,
or just one, one entry.
Yeah, that too. Also, I mean, technically, this is question number 3 and 4, but okay. Also, worst job you've ever had, and are you a full-time cartoonist?
Worst job I ever had was actually when I first moved to Asheville. I worked at an independent children's toy store run by these 2 sisters, and in my life, I've never suffered from acid reflux, but every day on the job, I had acid reflux there. I just hated being there, and they were really bad micromanagey bosses. They thought, like, I'd worked there for like maybe like a month, and a customer had asked me if they could buy a gift card, and I was like, oh yeah, sure. I haven't sold one yet. Let me grab my boss to see how to do it. And my boss looked at me, 28-year-old man, and was like, oh, I don't know if you're ready to sell gift cards yet. Which to me, I was just like, I looked at her and I was like, do you think I'm stupid? Like, why? And from that, it just kind of like snowballed. It was just a really bad, shitty job. None of the toys were cool. It wasn't like a cool toy store. It was like a lot of like, general brand kind of stuff. It was pretty miserable, honestly. And I remember, I think the day that I quit, I think I got into the car and I immediately, like, I think my girlfriend picked me up and we immediately just like smoked a bowl and we were just like, fuck this job, and just left.
Hell yeah.
But as far as full-time cartoonist, no. I mean, right now, technically, sure. Let's say I'm a full-time cartoonist because I have no day job right now.
Yeah, same for me right now.
Yeah,
same.
Yeah, so sure, I'm a full-time cartoonist and it's great. But no, previous to this, I was just like everybody else, working 40 hours a day, trying to pay rent, make the bills, and draw in the, brief moments of time I had when I wasn't worrying about paying rent and the bills.
Yeah, I am not a full-time cartoonist either. I am right now just because, like we said, we don't have jobs right now. But
hell yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great. I mean, that's the thing. I love not having a job. Yeah.
As shitty as this year is also rocked in some ways. But no, as far as like the shittiest job I've ever had, it started off not bad. I worked at Pizza Hut in like 2007, 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. And like, it was fucking awesome at first because like you'd make like 40 pizzas in a shift and like, that's manageable, whatever. That like breaks down to like 5 pizzas an hour. But then they started doing like the whole like $10 unlimited topping deal. And like we went from making 40 orders a day to like 350 plus.
No.
Yeah, like during like when they first launched that promotion, and I made it like 2 weeks, and like I asked for a raise. I was like, hey, we're doing way more work than we're, used to doing. And they said no, so I quit. But yeah, that was probably the worst job I had.
Every job I've ever had is the worst job I've ever had.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what? That's my answer too.
Yeah. Well, I will say, I can tell you what my least hated job was. And I've had a couple of those, like 1 or 2 of those. It was working for like a small flower atelier place. And they sold like flower arrangements and stuff like that. But the flowers were these like, I don't know what they did with them, but that they were effectively dead, but they looked alive, so you didn't need to water them.
Weird.
They were real flowers, though?
Yeah, they were real roses. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Cool.
And so
it's like Reanimator.
A little bit, yeah. And so we would, take in orders and do inventory and pack up stuff, make bouquets. I was responsible for some photography stuff because I had some background in that. And yeah, it was really nice. I only had like 2 other people that worked there. The person that owned it and my boss. And that's it.
Nice.
And they were both really nice. So yeah, all the other jobs can go fucking kick rocks for all I care.
I worked at a comic shop one time, and that was pretty sick, but I got fired for smoking weed in the building after hours.
Damn.
I'll tell that on a Patreon episode. I'll tell that story on a Patreon episode. Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
We got a lot of weed stories we can tell.
I know, for real. Yeah, bring me back on the Weed Chronicles.
Hey, we will. We're going to bring people back that have been on the show previously. So, yeah, if you want to do news and just dick off with us.
Happily.
The door is
Looking
open.
forward to episode 420.
Yeah.
Was it going to be like 10 years or something?
The entire time. Yeah.
Alrighty, so let's get to the next question. Came from Jazz_Heis. They asked favorite childhood memory, comic related or not.
I'll go first. I mean, I'll also do comic related because, that was the option. But I remember the first time I went into a comic shop. It wasn't really a comic shop though. It was like an import hobby anime manga like shop. It's called Our Galaxy in Tucson, Arizona. I remember going in there when I was must have been 9 years old, and I bought a Studio Ghibli doujinshi, so like a fan manga essentially that I didn't know what the fuck it was, but it was, had like Totoro on it, but Totoro doing non-Totoro things. It's kind of like hanging out with like regular manga characters, and it blew my mind. And going to that shop and just seeing, I don't know, tons of crazy shit that I had never experienced before was a very eye-opening experience. So yeah, the first time I went to a comic shop was great.
Yeah, I guess I was kind of like spoiled. This is like on the fly. I didn't really think too much about this, but when I was like 4 years old, I remember my dad was the manager of a KB toy store.
Sick.
So every Friday on payday, I would always get like a new action figure. And I guess that was like pretty sick because that makes me come off as very spoiled, I know. But
no way. I'm jealous. That's sick.
Yeah, like I just remember looking forward to like my dad's Fridays. I didn't realize it was payday, but it was payday. And I would always get like some kind of action figure for like the year or two that he worked there. So that was pretty sick.
So this is not comics related. One time my dad took me and my best friend. We were probably in 5th or 6th grade. And he took us to go see a WWF house show in my hometown. And I'd never really been to like a big wrestling event like that before, even though it wasn't like a big event, quote unquote. And we went. And we had pretty good seats, and it had a really, really cool card. If you like wrestling, yada, yada, yada. Most people that listen to this pod do not. And so, but the whole time I'm enjoying this and being, completely floored by it. But I'm also, this was the point in my childhood where I was basically legally blind, like severely nearsighted, but hadn't really spoken up about it yet.
Interesting.
So I didn't have my eyes checked. I didn't have glasses. So all I'm seeing is just like a blur of colors.
Oh, wow.
And like grunting and some, I can see parts of it, but not all of it. And for some reason, I think that's a pretty fond memory of mine.
It was maybe because it was like so sensory because you couldn't even see it. So everything else was so heightened,
Yeah. I think that was also the moment I realized I really needed glasses.
Oh, sure. See, I've been wearing glasses since I was 3 years old. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah, I'm also, I'm legally blind. Can't see shit. So, yeah.
I didn't get my first pair of glasses until like after high school because like I can't, what is it? Is it nearsighted when you can't see far away?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm nearsighted and I would always just like squint at the board, and like when I was driving, I just thought that was fucking normal. So and then
I was gonna say one time I was at Busch Gardens playing like an arcade game. It's like one of those shooter arcades. I think it was like the Jurassic Park one, and I'm playing it and like I have to squint my eyes because I can't see anything still. And these like kids who I don't know, and I was probably like in like 5th grade. I didn't know these kids, and they came over and they just started making fun of me because my eyes were squinted. Because I was Asian and also squinting my eyes more so because I was like unable to see anything.
Right.
That was a good memory.
A beautiful childhood memory.
Getting
beautiful
bullied.
childhood. 2 random white kids just making fun of me because I'm Asian.
Oh my God. But that Jurassic Park game, if I remember correctly, was that the one that you sat in like a booth? Yeah.
And it rumbled, and it was like a light gun game. Yeah.
My God, that was sick.
All right, next question is from Bubbles_Zine. What's up, Bubbles? They ask, explain your drawing process that led us all to get copies of your drawing in our packages. And what's your favorite fast food?
Process, let's see how to best explain it. It's when I first started getting into comics, my favorite comics were Peter Bagge. Peter Bagge, is that how you pronounce it? Peter Baggy?
I always said Bag. I don't know how to pronounce it. I've always said Bag though.
I think it's Bagge. But so I love the way that Hate looked, and I was like, how does he make it look this way? And so I found a book called Comics Introspective Volume 1, and it's essentially like a book-length interview with Peter Bagge. and he goes into his process. So I kind of just stole it from him. So essentially what it is, and I think a lot of people do it this way as well, is that for every panel on the page, I'll do like a really rough sketch on a scrap piece of paper, like super rough, light pencils, and then I'll go back over it and I'll tighten it up a little bit. But then I'll do a sort of final tightening up of the pencils, and I'll put some tracing paper over that, and I'll trace it onto the tracing paper. And then the last final step, which is not necessary, but I do it anyway, is that so I have like a drawing desk and it's glass, so I use it as like a light box essentially. So what I'll do is I'll place the tracing paper drawing underneath my Bristol board. I'll kind of move it around and see where I want it to be in the panel, sort of figure out everything around it, and I'll tape it down, and then I will pencil onto the Bristol board, tracing over that pencil drawing, and then I will ink it, which is a long, arduous process that I probably don't have to pencil onto the Bristol from the tracing paper, but I just do it anyway. I don't know. For some reason, there's something about me inking on pencil that's just more, it feels better than inking on this like straight paper that doesn't have pencil on it. So yeah, that's why there's like 3 different versions of every drawing in Rodeo 2 and Rodeo 1, because there's like the rough version, there's the tightened up tracing paper version, and then there's the final on the 11x17 Bristol board version. And sometimes I'll draw it straight to the Bristol board if it's like a very easy panel or, something simple. But for the most part, I'm not happy with my drawings when they first come out of my head. Like, I just don't like the way they look. I feel the need to constantly rework them. So I've kind of worked that into my process where the first thing I do is like, I don't have to be married to this, because I'm going to tighten it up anyway. So yeah, that's what I do, which is a lot of work, honestly. And then as far as favorite fast food, I love fast food. I love, you can't go wrong with a classic Big Mac and fries, a Sprite or a Coke. I love that. Moving here to the South, I used to love Cookout. I had never had Cookout before.
Rocks. That was actually a highlight of my Asheville Zine Fest trip, was eating a Cookout.
Cookout rocks. Okay, well, then I do apologize for the story I'm about to tell.
Go for it.
So I went to Cookout and I was like, this place is amazing. It's so cheap. You get so much food, and you get like a quesadilla and a burger. Like, it's wild. Like, they have all these great milkshakes.
Yeah, for anybody that doesn't know Cookout, it's a chain in the South, and you can pay $5 for what's called a cookout tray, and you get like a main entree, which is like a burger, like a chicken sandwich or whatever. But then there's all these crazy sides to choose from. Normally you just get fries, but Cookout's like, pick 2 of these, and it's like corn dogs, quesadillas.
Yeah. My goodness.
Like all this wild shit. There's like hush puppies. You can get fries fingers. If you want. Yeah, quesadilla. Like, it's crazy. Like, and it's like $5. It's amazing.
Yeah, it's super cheap. And, and they have a huge... They have like a huge selection of like fresh milkshakes too, and they're very famous for their banana pudding milkshake, which is very good. Yeah, it's delicious.
That sounds good.
Unfortunately, one time I went to Cookout and I was enjoying my banana pudding milkshake, having a great time with it. I get to the bottom of it, and I'm using the spoon, and I put a bite into my mouth, and there was a clump of hair in the bottom of the milkshake that went into my mouth.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And not like a strand of hair, like a clump of hair. Yeah.
Like shower drain shit.
Yeah. So unfortunately, I can't eat at Cookout ever again.
That's
because
fair.
The sense memory of it is just too much. But hey, if you haven't had that experience, go to Cookout. It's amazing. Just hopefully you don't get.
Hold the hair.
Yes, hold the hair. Yes. Oh, also I have to shout out In-N-Out because I'm from the West Coast-ish, Arizona. So
In-N-Out. In-N-Out rocks for sure. But it's like, I took my partner to In-N-Out, and I guess like I hyped it up so much. They were like, it was good, but it wasn't as good as I expected it to be.
Classic.
That's why I love Alicia. That's great.
What fast food do you guys like?
I think Taco Bell. JB and I both love Taco Bell.
Oh, yeah.
But I was going to say Cookout, but, I'm kind of, I haven't had a bad experience there, so I'll probably make my way to one day again.
Oh, you should, for sure.
I don't know if they had these in Arizona, but out west, there's Jollibee, which is like a Filipino fried chicken joint, but they also have like Filipino cuisine that's pretty good. Like, their breakfast is awesome. And then there's in California for sure, there's Yoshinoya, which is like beef bowl.
Oh yeah,
Yoshinoya fucks. It's like this like shredded beef with like onion on top of a bed of rice, and then they do like, I guess, like a teriyaki chicken. But that's my favorite spots. But as far as like normal stuff goes, I'm a Taco Bell person. McDonald's breakfast is undefeatable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, I love fast food too.
Yeah, Taco Bell rocks. That's definitely a go-to. Burger King's always been a favorite since I was a kid.
I like it too.
They have Impossible Whoppers, so I can eat those. So there you go.
And those are good. I've had those as well. Those are good.
Do you all remember the struggle days of being vegetarian and eating fast food, and you'd have to go to McDonald's and like get the 2 cheeseburger meal with no meat? Did you guys have to do that bullshit sometimes?
That sounds awful.
Never
it was
done that.
terrible.
Yeah, no.
Like that was like I don't know why. That was just like I feel like me and my friends would just do that a lot when we were in high school and mainly vegetarian.
Well, that's like an In-N-Out. They don't have any vegetarian options except for the quote-unquote grilled cheese, which is just a burger with no burger, and like it just does not seem appetizing to me.
That sounds really bad.
Yeah.
White Castle. White Castle's another place that I fuck with.
Have you tried their Impossible Sliders?
Yeah, they're great.
Are they good? Okay, I haven't tried them yet.
Yeah, I love them, and they got all the other stuff like the onion rings and whatever.
I gotta shout out one more place too. In Tucson, there's a local chain called EG's, which they do like grinders and subs, and they also have these kind of like shaved ice drinks that are called EG's. And they're amazing, and they have like flavors of the month. So every month there's like a new flavor. But they also have like 3 like regular flavors. It's like strawberry, pina colada, and lemon are like the year-round ones. And then every month there's like a different kind of like a lime, a watermelon. My favorite is the Orange Dream. It's like an orange creamsicle kind of thing.
Nice.
Yeah, it's just like a Tucson staple. Like it's just, and it's not. Here's the thing: is the food, especially now, not very good. To be totally honest with you, but it's just the ultimate. Like if you're from Tucson, like you've gone to like a friend's house and their parents have like bought a huge thing of EG's, or you've gone to like when you're a teenager, you have nowhere to go. You like hung out in EG's parking lot, that kind of thing. So it's it's got that place in my heart for sure.
Nice. Yeah, there's a regional place in my hometown called Mr. Fish.
Nice.
And it's like possibly the best fried fish sandwich you can get for how much they're charging.
Damn.
But yeah, that place is a banger. Everybody in my hometown knows about it. No one outside of my hometown knows about it until now. So there you go.
I love regional fast food. Regional fast food's the best.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
There's a Louisville fast food. Well, I guess it's regional. I don't know. I've never seen one outside of Louisville, but it's a fish sandwich place called Moby Dick. And I remember like being really obnoxious in high school with a friend's mom being like, "You gonna get some dick sandwiches?" Like,
oh my God.
Like, and then like they like yelled at me and stuff, and I wasn't allowed to come back to their friend, to my friend's house. If they always had to come to mine. But yeah, our local fish chain's called Moby Dick.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. Weird name for a restaurant, but, I guess it works. Yeah, let's see. There's some.
I can talk about fast food all day long.
Yeah. Fast food.
We could start a pod called Fast. Yeah, we do fast food pods. That's something Mike Dick would be into. Actually.
Yeah, straight up.
Show Mike Dick. Let's see. Next question. User Johnny D. Griff on Instagram asks, too long for the question box, but as a brand new creator, is it important to have some complete self-published work before shopping your new shit to small press publishers? This part's too boring to read on the air, but for some context, I'm going to read it anyway. I'm at the point where I have 3 different comics that are close to the finish line. I think one of them is better than the others, so I'm trying to decide if the other should be scrapped in favor of leading with something I actually like. It's a good question.
Yeah. Should I? I'll go first. Yeah. I definitely think, because the first part of the question was, what was it again exactly? That should you have like, a couple books under your belt? Yeah. So yes, you should definitely have completed work before even thinking about going to a publisher at all, because there's no, you have to kind of prove yourself. I think comics, to me, like indie comics, it's a weird thing because it's equally something you choose to do, but it's also the thing where it's like, if you want to make, if you're a cartoonist, you write and you draw and you want to put books out, there's really no way to go straight to a publisher. You got to do it yourself first. You got to.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's just, you got to sort of, pay your dues, so to speak, show that you can make a comic, because it's very hard to make a comic. And I don't even know if, any small publisher, the other thing too about it to think about is that as far as money goes, you're going to make more money self-publishing always, as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, yeah.
So, and especially if like you're somebody who has like a fan base at this point, you know what I mean? Like if you're like a big cartoonist or whatever, like self-publishing, it's so much smart. You look at like Kevin Huizinga, he self-publishes his new comic book Fielder. I think like, I don't know, there's some other people like, what's his name? He does that comic Tongues. His name's like Anders
Nilsson.
Anders Nilsson. Yeah. I think he self-publishes just because when it comes to like single issues, like there's literally no money to be made from a publisher for single issues. So just do it yourself and keep that money and create a body of work. And when you have a body of work, then you can start shopping it around.
Well, on our last episode, we had Michael Sweater on, and Michael was talking about that as well, about how publishers usually won't even fuck with you until you can show them that you can finish a book.
Yeah.
Just because it shows that you're capable of, delivering at the end of the day. And, so absolutely agree with Evan there as far as like, should you have complete work? Yeah, definitely. I mean, I can't really add anything more to, what Evan already said, but it shows that you're, reliable enough to create a full story from, beginning, middle to end. It shows that, you take it seriously. And as far as, your follow up, as far as, having 3 different projects and, you're wanting to scrap 2 and leaning towards something that you actually like working on, I think that's very important. I don't think that you should work on something that you don't like working on if it's not, your job.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
so,
if it's your choice, then yeah, why would you, if no one's paying you to work on things you don't like, why are you working on that thing?
Yeah, so definitely scrap those 2 projects and then just work on the one you like.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been of the opinion that you should not be approaching publishers. Publishers should be approaching you, and they'll only do that because you are creating consistent work. That's the only way how that works, in my opinion. I know some friends who've had some luck with that, but always 100% those people that do get published when they approach a publisher, it's because they already had a huge body of work behind that they self-published.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah. And also those 3, the other projects that you said were almost done, but they're not quite done and you're not enjoying it. Sure. Just drop them. Yeah. It doesn't really matter. I mean, as long as you have something done, that's what counts.
Well, and it sounds like, you're doing these on spec to try to pitch as opposed to like putting it out anyways. So, yeah.
Yeah, right.
And also, I mean, if you're like halfway done on something and you don't want to finish it, just put it to the side and like cannibalize it later. You know what I mean? I'm sure there's like a few ideas in there that are good or drawings or whatever. And just put that into the thing you actually like and it'll make that thing even better probably.
Yeah, for sure.
Or you might have a change of heart and you might actually like whatever it is that you were working on, and then you complete it, and then you can always just release it later.
Yeah.
I wish I had that problem. Holy fuck.
Yeah.
I have too many projects. I don't know what to do with them.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's. I try to keep myself pretty pared down as far as projects go. As I try to keep myself like I know my limits and I know what I can realistically accomplish. So I try to keep myself to 1 or 2 things at a time for the most part.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to stretch yourself too thin.
No.
That's for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Next question came from Brianna Murphy. Brianna asked, my question is, how is Margie so cute and how is Evan's girlfriend so great?
Margie is my dog and I love her very much. I don't know why she's so cute. I think she was just born that way. And she's just, she's my special little dog. I love her so much. I actually just spent a few days alone with her because Meredith was somewhere. And yeah, I don't know why she's so cute. She has a little robber mask, She's got those kind of like black patches over her eyes. She's all white.
That'll do it.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That'll do it.
And she's got those big, brown, beautiful eyes. She looks up at you. She's got a whole lot of personality. She's got a lot of personality. And then why is my girlfriend so great? I don't know. She just, again, maybe she was born with it. She's very talented and thoughtful and caring and very supportive of me and all of her friends. And, I'm very I'll say that too. She's thanked first thing in Rodeo too, because I think any cartoonist with a partner knows that like, man, if it wasn't for like a supportive partner, it's kind of hard to, I couldn't have done these comics honestly without Meredith there just for support along the way and just to sort of be like, even I bounce things off her too, as simple as being like, or like if I need a certain pose and I, need someone to take a picture, I'm just like, Meredith, come downstairs. I need you to take a picture of me. And it's like, some weird specific thing. So it's she helps a lot in the process. And I think, So Brianna, there's your answer.
All right. Yeah. Next question came from HC Prince. What's been your most exciting adventure in your career so far?
I've had no adventures in my career. 0.
Avoiding poverty.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, there you go. I guess, doing shows, the road trips to get there, hanging out with Dylan and Blake in the car are always, really fun. As far as like projects, I signed some NDAs, so I can't get like too much into it. But I was working with a rapper that was somewhat high profile on Kanye West's label that came through a childhood friend who was his assistant, and I got to write like a 40-page comic. It was cool because like I felt like I shouldn't have been there, especially that early on in my career. It was only a year after I'd put out my first comic, but I had to be on these like conference calls with like the label and like the art directors, and it was a bunch of bullshit. 2 hours every Sunday, and they ended up scrapping the comic. Yeah, it was cool because, you know, I got paid, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, I know they say like artists should be paid and not get exposed, you know, not paid in exposure, but a little exposure there would have been nice from something that high profile. But like just dealing with like a project that was kind of big like that was kind of, I guess, cool.
Yeah.
Fucking nothing. Yeah. Absolutely nothing.
The friendships.
The friends I made along the way.
There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah. That sounds about right.
This show, honestly, I can say that just because like it gives me an outlet, you know, kind of like Evan was saying at the beginning, you know, we don't really get to talk about this shit that often in our real lives. So having an outlet to do this,
especially now,
every 2 weeks is really great for me. That's a highlight of my career.
Oh,
yeah.
Sick.
Well, thank you. I'm glad we can put a smile on your face, Cam. All right. Next question is from D. Moses L. asks, what is your greatest challenge in lettering your comics?
Truthfully, my greatest challenge in lettering my comics is making sure I don't smear the ink when I'm lettering. Truthfully.
Are you left-handed?
No, so I'm right-handed. I don't know what it is. I probably every page of comics I've ever done, I've smeared ink before for whatever reason, because I'm impatient with the drawing, or I just wasn't paying attention where my hand was going or whatever. So a lot of times for lettering, what I'll do is if I have like a whole page, you know, and let's say I have like a narration box and like, you know, each panel, I'll do the first line in the first panel, and then I'll move to the second panel, do the first line there, third panel, et cetera, which gives enough time for the ink to dry. So I move back up to the first panel, and I'll do the second line, and I'll do the second line in the second panel, and then I'll do the second line in the third panel. And it's just only because I'm going to smear the ink. I know I'm going to smear the ink. I just know it because I do it all the time. Yeah, I do it all the time, and I don't know how to not do that, but I just do it. And I mean, I'll be spotting my blacks or whatever, you know, big washes of black, and there are plenty of times where I'll just fucking fuck up a whole drawing by just absentmindedly smearing, and I'll have that moment where, you know, those moments where no one's around, you fuck up, and you just kind of like sit there and stew in it. You just look at the, you know, the smear of ink, and you're just like,
right,
all right, guess I got to do something about this. So yeah, I don't know, but for me, lettering. Well, so I'm actually interested in this question too, because correct me if I'm wrong, Cam, you use fonts like computer fonts, right?
No, I don't do that. I cheat though using fonts. So what I do is when I'm lettering, I'll type out in my comics like the dialogue first, and I'll use the spacing as a guide. So it's like tracing in my own handwriting. I really just like do it for like spacing reasons.
Gotcha.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's a little tip for anybody if you suck at lettering and spacing shit out. Because like a lot of problems that I would have early on while making comics, and I was primarily analog at this point and when I was working, but I would like fuck up the lettering because I wouldn't give myself enough space. Like the letters would be like smaller towards the end of the like bubble or whatever. So yeah. So like to fix that, I just started like typing everything out, and then I'll just use that as a guide for like spacing, and then just like do my own little kind of handwriting thing.
Sweet.
Yeah, I mean, when I was doing all my lettering analog, I think I initially was just doing it freehand, and then that clearly was not the best way to do it. Yeah. So I started actually using gridded paper to do my lettering. And then I would cut that out and paste it onto the page and then scan it, and then it'd be done. Or sometimes I wouldn't even cut it out. Sometimes I would just scan the lettering separately and then drop it into Photoshop.
Yeah. I've definitely done that a few times with like, you know, if I wanted to change the writing on something, but I've already finished the page, I'll do like a separate little thing and scan it in. I use one of those Ames lettering guides. Like I use one of those things.
Oh, see, that's nice.
Yeah, it took a while for me to kind of like figure it out at first, but once I did, I was like, oh, this is it. Yeah, it kind of all the problems from like spacing or whatever kind of go away when you have that thing in there. So it's nice. But again, I can't help but always smear my letters, so that's my issue.
I thought about making like my own like lettering font, but like when I'm reading books, I can totally tell when somebody's fucking done that, and it bothers me, so I refuse to do that.
Yeah.
Like you can just tell, you know, like you could tell that each E has like a little accent mark on, you know, like there's just some little thing that you can just tell if you look close enough, where like the common reader's not going to notice that shit. But, me,
right,
immersing myself in this. Yeah.
Cam, I'm happy to hear you don't use like fonts in your comics, because my Gutter Boys hot take is that people who don't letter their comics and say use fonts are... don't do that, just like letter your comics.
Yeah.
Lettering is the secret ingredient of comics, in my opinion. Like it can hold it, because like you said, Cam, like you can tell when like a font's being used or this kind of stuff, and like lettering can add such a personality to a comic that wouldn't be there otherwise. I don't know. I think lettering,
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like even earlier we were talking about Daniel Clowes, and like his lettering was crazy back in the day, but it's something to talk about. Or I think about like Noah Van Sciver's lettering is very...
Oh, he's great. Yeah.
Yeah. That lettering is very like, it's very singular, it's very unique to him, and I don't know, there's lots of great, I don't know, I love looking at a cartoonist lettering. It's fun.
I have terrible handwriting, so
Yes.
I always struggle.
Mine is awful too, but when I do my comics, I do it in like block letters, so I do like all caps. Just kind of made its way to my normal handwriting now, and my normal handwriting is all caps.
See, like, I've got like shaky hands, so it's like that's partly why, like, I'll use a font as a guide. Like, I literally will just type the shit in Times New Roman and just use it as like a spacing grid. Like, I don't care if my line work looks like fucking string, but I don't want my letters to look like that. So like, I take like a lot of time like making sure my letters are like as like clear and straight as possible. So much so that I think like it looks like kind of jarring compared to like my line work. It looks a little more clean than
Maybe
the rest
that's why
of
I
it.
thought. Yeah, maybe that's why I thought it was like a font or something. But
Yeah,
that's cool.
That's definitely like purposefully done. Like, but no, it's like it's not a font, but it's I'm definitely using like a guide, so I'm cheating there. But it is what it is. All right, so last question came from friend of the show, Alex Null. Alex wrote, "Who are some of your favorite literary writers? Do you try to emulate their work or avoid it?"
My work is really influenced by books I've read. Specifically, I'm really inspired by Latin American writers and the sort of movement of writers from around like the 50s to now. So specifically, like writers I read and I'm really inspired by are people like Jorge Luis Borges.
Oh yeah.
Or
Hell
yeah, he's amazing. Carlos Fuentes is another Mexican writer I love. There's a woman, her name's Silvina Ocampo. She has this great book of short stories. They're all kind of like, all these things share a kind of like ghostly sort of playful postmodern kind of thing. I like a lot of like contemporary short story writers as well, like Karen Russell or Amy Bender or George Saunders.
I love Karen Russell.
Yeah, she's amazing. Her sentences are so good. And so when I'm writing, I'm usually not like looking at those things or being influenced by them, but I am thinking about them, and I'm trying to achieve whatever I feel like the mood or feeling they were trying to achieve. I try to go for that same mood in my own way. So yeah, I would say I'm inspired by. I think I'm not inspired by any comics writers at all, but I'm inspired by tons of like actual writers.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I don't really, there's not like a comic writer. I mean, Alan Moore, I guess, could like deserve props, Grant Morrison, but like it's very few and far between that you become like a known comic writer. And I feel like the era of that is like over maybe.
And it's just, the issue with those guys too, like I love, Alan Moore's great, Grant Morrison's great, but like those guys, their pages are just filled with fucking text. Like,
yeah.
And I just like, when I'm reading a comic and I open a comic up and it's just like chock-a-block full of text, I'm like, fuck this comic. Like, I don't want to read it, even if it's really, really good. Like, I think I got a Frank Thorne book. He has a book called Gita that is like beautifully drawn, but like every page is just filled with these paragraphs of just like nonsense. And I just don't care. Just don't care.
Yeah, I'm the kind of the same way as you. Like, like I've read that stuff and I like it, but I'm more so like if I think writers, I don't think comic writers. I think like, actual like, novels and, poetry and so forth. And as far as like, I guess like favorite stuff, I really like Richard Brautigan. I really like, I don't even know how to say his name. Mishima. I don't know how to pronounce it, but the guy who like
Yukio Mishima.
Yeah, the guy who like killed himself and they did the movie.
The Paul Schrader movie.
Yeah. I've been reading a lot of his work this year. I've read like 4 of his novels. I like Murakami. I think Murakami can be really interesting. Sometimes he's a little long and drawn out, but I do like him. And I guess this is more like newer stuff, but I want to say they're from Argentina, but there's their work's getting translated into English recently. Samantha Schweblin, I think. They do like horror stuff and it is incredible. Like they did a book called Fever Dream about this woman who like lost her sight and there's like this little boy next to her in the hospital that's like asking her like a bunch of questions, trying to find that like exact moment that this happened. And it's written in such a way, like there's no chapter breaks. It's just like a 100+ page like novella with no chapter breaks. But I definitely recommend checking that out if you're looking for something kind of creepy to read that
sounds cool.
Is unlike anything else I've ever read before.
Nice.
Yeah,
nice.
It's pretty sick.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to echo Evan's thoughts on Borges. I love Borges. Also, big Kobo Abe fan.
Oh, hell yeah. Totally.
You know, Kafka. And I guess I do like a specific kind of writer.
For sure. Alienated.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. No, I love Kobo Abe. I think I read The Boxman like in high school, and I was like, this book's fucking crazy. And then,
yeah, it's wild.
Yeah, he's amazing. He's amazing.
I always thought about doing a loose adaptation of that book just for fun.
Man. That'd be great. That'd be a cool comic. I mean, a man being chased like in a box, like chased by a man with a shotgun. I mean, how is that? How is that not a comic already? You know?
Yeah, right.
And I have to mention though, because you brought up Murakami, right, Cam? Did I make that up? I just gotta throw this out there.
I did.
That when I was in college, actually, I was briefly in college, did not graduate. But when I was in college, I took a Japanese literature class from this guy by the name of Dr. Philip Gabriel, who is the translator of like most of Murakami's stuff in America.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was a awesome class because like truly just like hearing him talk about translating and the work that goes into it. He shared all these like hard copy letters that him and Murakami would write to each other because Murakami didn't use email. He might not still use email, but yeah, he didn't use email. So he would just like long form handwrite all these like letters to him in Japanese and send them to America to Dr. Gabriel's office. And he showed us all those letters and stuff. And it was really cool. Yeah, it was sick.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, that rocks. There was one more that I realized was commented that was on our page. Hang on, let me find. But I mean, honestly, I think we've pretty much covered it all. And it was, I want to say it was another question from the dude who already asked 2 questions that we got onto.
He really wants to ask his questions, doesn't he?
Well, I looked at his profile and he DM'd us and he's very nice. He's going to send us some comics, but he is 18. So I think, you know, his work is really good. So it seems like, I guess like the way that those cartoonists felt about Adrian Tamina coming in, that's how I feel about like Jasper Jubenville and this dude.
Man,
like,
Jasper's out of this world.
Jasper's
out of this world.
Yeah, Jasper. We're gonna get Jasper on sooner than later.
Yeah, we have to get permission from his parents first, but once we get that out of the way, we'll have that little whiz on the show.
They'll have to fax you their signature, you know, make sure they're allowed to.
Yeah.
There is cursing on this show.
That's true. Yeah, we're going to have to pull that in a bit. We do have one more question. Someone asked me a question on my story. Let me pull it up.
Okay.
Oh, it's not really a question. I mean, it is, but okay. Instagram user Daniel Warren Art asks, when will you have a mainstream hack like me on the show?
Oh, is that DWJ?
Yeah, it's DWJ.
We already had Ramon on the show.
Yeah, although when we had Ramon, we did talk a lot about small press and how much he thought it was lame. So...
Hey, if DWJ wants to come on the show, hey, Daniel, I'd love to talk to you, man.
He does
doors
actually,
open.
To his credit, and maybe he doesn't count it in his mind's eye, but he does a lot of self-publishing in between projects.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, his little like sketch zines and everything like that.
No, like comic shorts, like mini zine comics. Yeah. I mean, granted, they're all like based off of existing properties. Like he did a Star Wars one, he did a Star Trek one, that kind of thing. But... it's, you know, these are pages that he did a Liger one. These are all pages that he did on his own time, you know, compiled them, printed them out, collated, stapled, and sold them at his table, just like every other person at a zine fest. So there you go.
Yeah, I think, and I mean, even taking that out of the equation, the one time I met Daniel, he was very nice. But
he's a very nice guy, yeah.
Even though we mainly feature small press on here, it's just because those are really the connections that we have. We're not opposed to talking to creators here.
Yeah, you hear that, Dan Slott? Come on over anytime
I would love to hear a roundtable with like current Marvel, DC people on this podcast.
That would be, man.
So on July 7th, you tweeted.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's going to be like a Maury episode.
Yeah. No, I would love to have DWJ on.
I
think
Ice wasn't that bad. That was a lie.
I think that Daniel could potentially be one of the saviors of mainstream comics based off the work they post.
Yeah,
so yeah, I would love to have Daniel on. Daniel, just make sure that your word on the street is you might be in the middle of a bidding war, so make sure you can do this show.
I think that's it for questions.
Yes. So,
right?
That's pretty much it, guys. If we didn't get to your question, write in again. We'll get to you one day. That was a lot of questions, so we definitely appreciate it. Evan, before we get out of here, thank you so much for coming on. I tell you pretty often, that I love your work. Rodeo 2 is officially one of my favorite comics of the year, but let's go ahead and tell people where they can find you online and where they can get a copy of Rodeo.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate that, Cam. Thank you. You can go to my website, rodeocomics.com. And I got some information up there. You click on the store link and you can order the first 2 issues from that link. It comes with, if you order from me, Rodeo 2, it comes with one of the many of those tracing paper drawings I spoke about earlier because they stack up and I don't want them around. So, take them off my hands. And then you can find me on Instagram at Evan_salad bar, which is just a nickname that I got back like in elementary school. I think I gave it to myself, to be totally honest, and it just has stuck ever since. So that's what I go by on there. But yeah, my web store. And then there's, if you're in Brooklyn or Philadelphia or Chicago or Buffalo, New York, go to your local comic shops there, your indie ones, and Rodeo should be there. So it's like Desert Island, Partners in Sun, Gutter Pop Comics, and Quimby's. So yeah, it's in some comic stores, trying to get it into some more stores because it's not for money reasons, it's just for fun reasons. It's fun to have people go into the store and pick up your comic. So yeah, that's pretty much it. RadioComics.com.
I think I saw Caroline post that you sold out at Quimby's.
Oh, I know I sold out from Rodeo 1 last year, and then I sold a copy at Quimby's. I should check in and see if I've sold out there, because that's the thing. A lot of these places are cities where I know people, so it's kind of like I kind of tell people, like, go buy my comics, so they think it's popular and they'll buy more. So that's kind of the gist usually. Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah.
Smart.
Yeah.
I like that.
So yeah, so if you're in Chicago, go pick up a comic, or Brooklyn, or any of those cities. Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you again for coming on, Evan. We definitely appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a great time. Oh,
definitely
man.
Appreciate it.
Bring me back on for the Fast Food Weed Chronicles, whatever. Both at the same time. We'll do that. That'd be fun.
We'll just start doing mukbang videos.
Yeah, we'll have you lined up as one of our first guests for the Patreon episodes.
Sick.
Yeah, so as always, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Cam Del Rosario. JB is at Mort Crimp Jr. Our social media, once again, is at GutterBoysPod on Twitter and Instagram, and our email address is gutterboyspodcast@gmail.com. And
as always, like, share, subscribe, review. I hear reviews are important, so do that, I guess. They can be negative. That's fine. A review is a review. Anything else?
No, just stay gutter.